Do you think it's possible to have a crash this year or sometime soon? Because we are kind of hitting that ultra low bar of horrific quality, and it's not just horrible quality; it's also like crazy politics in their games and all this. All right, well, here we have episode one of this brand new podcast here on this channel called SNEED Session. And who better for my first guest as the person I've collaborated with the most? And that is Brian Martinez of Honey Badger Radio, Honey Badger Arcade, Badger Live Streams, and I guess the more broadly, Honey Badger Brigade. So I guess, tell me a little bit about yourself, Brian. Like, who are you? Like, what do you do?
Well, so my name is Brian Martinez, and I've been doing YouTube and podcast production for coming up on 12 years now. And I started with the Honey Badgers. I was originally like a retail manager, and I worked in a theater, and I was doing sort of like independent artwork. Like I was trying to come up as like a comic book artist and a writer, and that's really honestly how I started. And I had this project that I wanted to work on where I was trying to tell a romantic story from a male perspective. And it was just like an experiment I was playing around with. Like I thought, well, I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, at least not in the way that I want to do it. And I got a lot of pushback because of, I guess I was centering it on a male character that was sort of wrestling with different kinds of relationship dynamics. And I got like, I want to say 2 or 3 issues in. The website and stuff's all gone right now. I think I have my artwork buried someplace. I'm kind of embarrassed of it, but not because of the art itself. I feel like it's not as good as it could have been, as
I
I
think
feel I could have done today.
I think every artist is like that, where they just
Yeah,
hate all their
yeah,
old
they
work.
look yeah, I don't like looking it's like looking at my old work is like listening to my own voice on a recording. Like it just irks me. But I got this pushback and I didn't quite understand it, and so at the same time I was having conversations with my very close friends who I grew up with, went to school with, and they were all having they had gotten married, they started families, and then they all went through these terrible divorces. It was at least all around the same time. It was about 4 or 5 guys, and I was like, why is this happening? Like, these are good dudes that they love their kids, they really want to be involved with them. And I just noticed that there was something going on between men and women, and that was what drew me to Honey Badger Radio, because I started watching these videos by Karen Strawn, who is a friend of mine, pretty well known as Girl Writes What online, and some others, and they all had some answers. And we don't have to get into the politics of all that, but it was what drew me in. And when I told them my story, they had me come on as a guest originally. This was right around the time that Gamergate was starting as well. And then after that, they said, we really like you. We want you to be like on the show regularly. And I was like, okay, I'll make time, because I was like working and going to school. And I did. And then after a little while, I basically was brought on as a producer. So I've been doing that ever since. I host the shows, I add commentary, and I like to talk about cultural things. I think that culture and stories are very important. But I also talk about the political and social aspects as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that was my
Well, I
thoughts.
think yeah, that's good. I think for the people who maybe don't know, like, what the honey badgers are, like, how would you describe them?
Well, the honey badgers are framed. You can, if you look it up online, they'll say that it's a group of women who advocate for the issues, both legal, social, and cultural, that affect men and boys, because they are sort of left out of the conversation. When we talk about the people who are in need of support, who are downtrodden or suffering, it's almost always oriented towards women, and that's sort of like a natural evolved thing that we do, because since women are the limiting factor in reproduction, we tend to value their lives more than men, and men are generally more disposable. And so these women, they put a focus on that. Now, obviously, I'm not a woman, so it's a bit of a misnomer to say it's an all-woman group. It isn't. But that's where they get it from. And in order to do that, one of the things that we do a lot on the channel is criticize the sort of status quo of the dynamics as they exist, which is essentially under a feminist, very much like a post, let's say, 60s sexual revolution, second wave feminist movement. And even people who claim that they're separate from that, almost all of them are all underneath that umbrella. They're all affected by it. And so what we try to do is bring additional context to that conversation so people can sort of separate themselves from that narrative, because it's a lie. It's a myth. It's a myth about our let's say our history. It's a myth about our biology, and it's a myth about the relationship between the sexes, which is, in my opinion, the most important relationship, full stop. Like there's nothing more important than that. So yeah, that's what we do. We end up pissing off a lot of statists, communists, and feminists. But I repeat myself.
So I guess it's fair to say that the Honey Badgers are like a men's rights advocacy group. What
Yes.
would you say to people who are critical of a MRA group led by women?
Um, well, actually, this is the one of the things that I think gives us a good advantage is that the fact that it's led by women is actually what makes people curious about it. Because when men simply advocate for themselves, and men have been advocating for themselves since, like, for the longest time, since Ernest Belford Bax, who was like one of the first sort of proto MRAs, but also more recent examples from the 1960s and 70s. You had Dr. Warren Farrell, who was involved with the second wave feminist movement. And then he realized, well, there's another side of the coin. I want to address this. But when men speak out, they're disregarded, they're dismissed, or worse, they're criminalized, demonized, they're pathologized as, like there's something, they want to take something away from women, or, they have like some nefarious alternative goal. And so when you have women doing it, it makes people say, well, why would women advocate against their own interests unless that's not really what this is about? So it actually creates some more, I would say, interest and curiosity. Now, of course, the attacks, or I guess, yeah, the attacks on us or on the women that I work with are more severe. It's kind of like, for example, if I can put it in a way that people can understand more easily, if you're a black person that's critical of Black Lives Matter, then you get called what? The white face or the black face of white supremacy, or an Uncle Tom or something like that, right? Or like you're a race traitor. So basically, these women are gender traitors, and that's usually how that shakes out. And they get that from men and women on the other side of this conversation. But I think, and maybe it's because I'm an optimist, I think that what is actually more likely to happen is that people become more inquisitive, and then they start looking into things.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. That's kind of like when you brought up the example of like a, I guess, black person going against Black Lives Matter. That's kind of what I equated it to, like in my head as well. That's the comparison that made most sense to me.
Yeah.
Now that we have like a gist of like who you are and like what you do, like this is ultimately a gaming channel. So we're gonna pivot into some gaming topics here. I guess first, just to
hmm
like let people get to know you like from a gaming perspective. How did you get into gaming, and what was your first piece of gaming hardware, like a console or a handheld?
Oh, okay. So how did I first get into gaming? I think what really it's gonna really date me a lot, but I remember I was with my folks, and I was a little kid. I gotta be like, I had to have been like 5 years old, and we made a stop at this little hot dog stand in Humboldt Park in Chicago. It's that stand is still there, by the way. And inside there, they were getting some food, and I think they're going to share French fries with me. I was probably like 5, and there was a Space Invaders arcade machine, and I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And I
I just
saw it, and
real quick, I just wanted
yeah,
to be clear. I know you're a bit older, like you're a Gen Xer.
yeah, I'm a Gen
I think
Xer.
you're the same age as my dad, actually, if I remember
Oh my
correctly.
god.
Which don't worry, that's not an insult. That makes you like one of the
No, no, it's
cooler
fine.
Gen Xers, like by far.
Yeah, 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 I know.
um,
I try to move away from being, because the Gen Xers they sort of ride the line between being boomers and being more cool. It was a weird time to be Gen X. It was a weird time, but
as
anyway.
a as one of the younger millennials, I have a lot of criticisms of Gen X, and none of them apply to you.
All right.
Just
All right.
so you know. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to you mentioned Space Invaders, right?
Yeah, Space
Um,
Invaders.
so, like, what year was this about? That's why I
This
asked.
I probably right around the time that it first hit arcade. So I would say like the late 70s, like very late 70s, if not like the very early 80s. But
Okay.
it was
So this was, like,
before.
during the Atari's era, before the
Yes,
NES and
it
Famicom.
was
Okay.
right before the Atari 2600 came out because when I saw Space Invaders and then later I saw Pac-Man in an arcade, and that blew me away even more because there were colors. I was begging my mother to get us an Atari. And I think that my baby brother, who he and I are like 4 years apart, so he wasn't able to play them. But I remember my parents did save up one year, and it was probably like after the console had been out for a while and the price dropped, and they bought us an Atari 2600. And we had Pac-Man, and like back then the games would come out like every week because they were so like small and easy to make.
Yeah, I know,
So yeah,
like, oftentimes,
yeah.
like, it was one guy who made it in, like, 3 months or whatever,
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah, you'd get and I mean like the quality because back then there was no such thing as game reviews or
Right.
journalism in that field. It was
It's too
all it was a
new and
very
too niche.
it was
Yeah.
way too new. Yeah, it was pretty niche. My mother played more Pac-Man than I did though. Like she had really got into it at the time. I mean
Pac-Man
she played
was
on the
always, like, famously, like, extremely
yeah,
popular with women in
yes,
particular,
but
which
the
is
but
why they
the
went for Miss
Atari
Pac-Man and all that stuff.
yeah, but the Atari Pac-Man was pretty trash. Like, I mean, it was it was
Yeah.
like compared to the arcade, and
Famously,
I
like,
rem
that guy made it in, like, a month, right? And I think they, like, pushed it out the
yeah,
door. It's almost the same as, like, with E.T., like, famously,
yeah.
like,
Oh,
horrible.
ET. We had that one, famously awful ET.
That whole
Yeah.
2nd console generation there, like Atari, the ColecoVision, like, like, as you'll know, like, we had, like, the video game crash of, like, 1983,
Hmm.
and that stems from, like, so many games and, like, really low quality
Oversaturation, shitty
options, yeah,
quality.
and
Yeah.
way too many consoles on the market. A lot of them
Yep.
were, like, clones and, like, shitty clones, like, it was a mess for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as much as I like to sometimes dog on Nintendo for their greed and shitty, like, corporate practices in that way, we do
Hmm.
have a lot to thank them for kinda pulling
Oh,
the
for
North
sure.
American market out of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, and again, it was. I think it's an inevitability that these things like get to a crescendo, and then there's an oversaturation and a declining quality, and then there's a crash. But then I think after the crash, because people are always freaking out about that, I think things level out, and then the true fans, the people who really love this stuff, will stay, and then the tourists will go on to something else. And I think that ends up being better in the long run.
I agree, and I
Yeah.
wonder I predicted this was, like, 2016, before I ever made any YouTube anything, but, back in 2016, like, I kinda just saw the writing on the wall with kinda how the modern state of gaming was going, and I predicted a crash in about a decade's time. Well, as of recording this, it's, the day after New Year's 2026. Do you think it's possible to have a crash this year or sometime soon? Because we are kinda hitting that ultra low bar of horrific quality, and, it's not just horrible quality, it's also, like, crazy politics in their games and all this kinda shit, and just low competency and creativity as a whole. Like, do you think that there's gonna be another crash? You think this industry is just too big? Maybe just some AAA companies will continue to fold and gaming itself will live on? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I guess it depends on what a crash looks like. Because I think that, as I was there for what happened in '83, and the thing is that there were still consoles around, but there wasn't any excitement until the 8-bit NES came out. Like, we did have, some like the Atari 5200, the Atari 7800 came out. But they just didn't do well. So, but they did exist. So, what I think, honestly, I think that gaming is not like as a whole going to disappear, but I do think that we're getting to the point now where there's a lot of content out there, and people, because of for economic reasons and also because they've been burned before, they're going to be, I would hope or imagine, a lot more discerning with how they spend their money. And I think the big AAA companies that are like really sort of overselling like things like live service and season passes and all microtransactions. I think those things are on borrowed time and they're probably going to go away. And I think what we're going to see is new models replace them, but it will look like a crash probably because like the biggest titles are gonna decline is what I imagine. But I do think that a lot of the smaller devs, because gaming in terms of developing your own games, I think it's becoming more accessible to even do something that is relatively like, higher end or at least appears to have a higher budget, even though it's made by a small team. And I think we're seeing a lot more of those things. So I guess it just depends on what a crash looks like. But what I think is some of the household names are probably going to go by the wayside. I don't know that they can salvage them. Um, Unless they completely change the model that they use to like make money. And I think that companies should be able to make money. So again, I'm not against that. And I do think in a lot of cases, what happens with these bigger companies is they spend too much money on things that are not that important, and then they try to make that money back through these practices that people like read as predatory. A lot of times I think they're trying to figure out what model is the best, which is like, I think they're still trying to figure that out. It's like an adjustment period. Do you know what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, of course. And I think, you bring up a good point, like you're mentioning like monetization and such. Also, like, I guess what would differentiate this from 1983 is that the economy is in fucking shambles right now, especially for like a giant portion of the gaming audience, which would be like younger millennials and like Gen Zers. Like, they
Yeah.
just don't have expendable money for shit. And, a lot of games come out, like the AAA stuff is like live service games that like are basically like a whole nother job to play. It's like, oh, fuck, like, oh, I gotta get on. I gotta do my job. I gotta do my dailies and my weeklies and buy my season pass and do all those challenges. Make sure I get my money. It's insane, and I don't think it's sustainable long term.
No, I don't think it's sustainable either. And that's the thing. Like, we have to, I think that these big studios got to adapt to what is happening in the world in order to like, make some money. And some of them do it well. Like we have games that they come out and they're really affordable and reasonable considering how much they give you. Like Helldivers 2 is like $40, right? And I think it's on sale or it's been on sale a few times as an example. Then you have games that are free to play and that's a good entry point. I believe Fortnite is free to play. I don't know, but that's probably why it's
It
so
is, yeah.
popular with younger people. But
Mhm.
then like how do you make money so that Fortnite can continue to be supported and developed and all that? Well, they got to make money somehow to do that because they got to pay their employees. So they end up engaging in these like there's microtransactions, and I don't know if those are considered bad practices or necessary, but it's like figuring out what model is the best. But yeah, I think that I think that people generally are, especially young people, because of the economic challenges, they're generally skeptical of full price games coming out. Like they're trying to figure out why should I pay $70 for a game. And some companies, I think Ubisoft may have started this, are talking about like what do they call them? Quadruple A games, where it's like, oh no, this is like a really big game, right? GTA
Yeah, that's what
6
they
is,
said. Like Skull and Bones was, and
yeah, yeah.
what really made that quadruple A was just how much money they dumped into that piece of shit,
Exactly. And
right?
so the answer that, and this is where the corporations have to like figure this out. The answer is they have to be very let's say frugal with how they spend their money on development. So I actually started talking about this back when I don't remember which game it was, but it was one of the Black Ops games and it had like it featured Kevin Spacey in it. I don't know if you guys do you remember that?
That
It was
was
one of the Call of Duty
that's not a
games.
Black Ops
Or
game. It's Advanced Warfare from 2014.
oh, Advanced Warfare. Okay, okay. So there was a military shooter and they put Kevin Spacey in the game. And I was like, "Oh no." Right? Like they're going to do this thing now where they're going to try and put Hollywood budgets into video games and they're going to use that to justify whatever else that they do, like whatever microtransactions they put in or whatever. And sure enough, like we've gotten to the point where you're seeing all kinds of, celebrities appearing in games when no one really wanted that. Like I mean, I still don't want that. And also, there's this celebrity culture creeping into game development itself, where you get like we treat people like Hideo Kojima or other sort of game developers or even like voice actors who would normally they'd get their credit and people recognize them, but we didn't treat them like royalty. And they're trying to like elevate them to that point. And I think that that's another way of like artificially inflating the value of content, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
that
they're
was
kinda
something
trying
that
to
I
treat,
talked
like,
about.
the Kojimas and whatever of the world kind of like, they glorify them in the same way now that they do, like, movie directors like Tarantino and
Exactly. Yeah.
Scorsese. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just supposed like if they put Kojima's name on something, you're just supposed to buy it. Look, I like the Metal Gear games. I think they're fine. But I just not I don't like that approach because it does feel like it's using clout to create value to influence people to buy
Using
stuff.
the
And
namesake as a marketing tool now.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it was just like what they did with movies. And look at the shape movies are in, where they'll be like, this is from acclaimed Academy Award winning, cinematographer so and so, and here's the movie. It's like, yeah, but is the movie good? Because people
Right.
care about what they spend their money on. You know,
Also, I
you
think we have
mentioned.
to make, like, a distinction super quick,
Hmm.
like, we need to stop calling these, like, in-game purchases microtransactions. They have not been micro for quite some time. It is not uncommon, like, to see 20, $30 skins in Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever. That's not micro, like, that's
That's
macro. You're
crazy.
talking about
Hmm.
a character model, like, not even like, literally just a skin. Like, it's not like they're, like, re-rigging the model or doing any other, in-depth work on it.
Hmm.
Um, 30 bucks, like, half the price of the game or whatever is insane, especially, like, Call of Duty is even more egregious than Fortnite because at least Fortnite is free to play. Call of Duty, you gotta pay $70 just to get in the door, plus the battle pass for like $10, and then they have a premium battle pass for $30, and then they have all these skins that are 20, $30. Like it is completely out of control.
Diablo
So
has like a skin that's like $80 or something, which is like twice as much as the base game
Holy
or something
cow.
crazy like that, and that's pretty bad.
That's crazy. That's
So
crazy,
you're
man.
buying like two
like
Diablos for something that you add to Diablo. It's not.
like we how did we get here, right? Like how did we learn to like accept this low bar? Like I'm old enough to remember, and I love Oblivion. I'm pretty much never gonna shit talk this game, but I'm old enough to remember Oblivion from 2006, where you had this $3 horse armor pack, and it was like everyone was rioting over this fucking shit. And now it's just like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna play fucking Madden and spend $100 a year on these stupid little fucking cards, or like how did we get here? Like, this is insane.
Well, I mean, when it's funny because like when video games were new, which is like when we had our little Nintendo consoles and such, it wasn't just like ignored; it was kind of like shit on, and people were basically like, "Oh, you're a loser nerd that plays video games," just like people who play D&D or have some other like hobby that isn't the appropriate hobby, like I don't know, watching sports or spending all your money on slot machines. And then they realize that this is a real like business that makes real money. And I think when they realize that, because look, the gaming industry is still, despite all of its problems, the largest entertainment industry, not just like of all that exists, but of all time. And the reason is because it is a step beyond what a film or a book or a television show or music or a
Of
TV
course,
show, whatever, could
because video
could
games
actually do.
inherently can do something that the other mediums can't do because it's
Yes,
interactive. It's the only one that can
right.
make you experience. Everything else can make
Yes.
you like you can hear a piece of music and it's beautiful and you can feel something, or watch a movie or read a book and feel something, but you can't actually experience it for yourself outside of a video game, like other than real life, obviously. But as far as media goes, like that's what gives games like its inherent edge.
Mhm. And so when people realize that there was money to be made, I think that's when the interest, sort of exploded in doing that. And so what I think we have now are the people who are involved in developing games and marketing them and selling them, etc., are not gamers. They're just either bureaucrats or they're simply people looking to exploit this for profits.
Oh yeah,
And
no, I've experienced this,
yeah,
firsthand, like on the developer side. Like
yeah,
the boards of all these companies are just like these out of touch boomers. Like they're not gamers. They don't know anything about gaming from the get go. They're just looking to turn a profit. And
yep,
I think like maybe how we got here is both at the same time, like too many casuals getting into gaming, it becoming like
hmm
not niche anymore, and it becoming overly corporatized. Because I
yeah,
remember, like, you're saying, like, gaming used to be, like, uncool, like, you were, like, a fucking dork, like, if you used to game, like, back in the day.
hmm
Gaming, at least, like, in my experience, like, didn't even really become, like, commonplace even, like, amongst people my age, I'm 30, until maybe, like, late middle school for me. So this would have
hmm
been, like, 2007, 8, 9, like, somewhere around there. Because, like, back then, like, or before then, like, you had to ask someone, like, "Do you, like, play games? Like, do you play video games? Do you have, like, a PlayStation?" Or, whatever it may be. And, it wasn't super uncommon to say, like, "Nah, like, video games are gay. Like, I just play football." It's like, "Okay, that's fine. Like, do your thing." But then, like, in high school, it was never like, "Do you play games?" It's, "What games do you play?" Or, like,
yeah,
what platform do you play on?" And, like,
yeah.
it was definitely a very noticeable shift for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with casuals playing games, but I do think there should be like a divide between like it's okay that they play them, but I think that there should be games for casuals and then there should be games for gamers. And that those things can exist. It's like,
I
like game
agree, but at the same time, it's like there's more money in like exploiting the casuals. So that's like the direction for profit reasons that like AAA took, which is kind of sad. Like it kind of hurts all of us.
Mhm. Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
think we
but
should like necessarily gatekeep the casuals or whatever. Like, enjoy your I played like NHL, like it doesn't get that much more casual than that. I just happen to like hockey. And it's the only literally and like figuratively, it's the only game in town. There's no other professional hockey games out there other than the EA NHL games. Um,
yeah.
so like I don't think we should like gatekeep these people, but like their their casual I guess their inherent casualness does end up doing damage to us. They're willing to accept a lot less.
Well, yeah, then that it comes back to like I think it's I think that there's a way to make this work, but because I think that gamers they don't care about like what like the things that typically make the budgets bigger for these games that are made to appeal to casuals. I don't think that gamers care about that. And so you can give the casuals, like for example, what are those David Cage games? I mean, I would say those are
Oh, like the Quantic
for
Dream games,
casuals.
like Heavy
Yeah,
Rain and Beyond Two Souls and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like those, like they're telling a story. They're very story focused, and it doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong. The story continues. Like you can miss like all the quick time events, and quick time events themselves are not gameplay. So like those can, and they usually put big names in there. Like Willem Dafoe and Ellen Page, rest in peace. And so um, but yeah, they put like big names in there, which makes the games more expensive, or at least it adds to the budget of the development because they got to pay the actors. So let the casuals have that. But me personally, like one of my favorite franchises is the Street Fighter franchise, and that game has basically no story. I mean, they put a story in there, but I really don't care about it. Like I don't need the story. I enjoy the game because it has the gameplay that I like and a depth that I like. And so what I don't like though is that in order to because they are making this mistake with fighting games where they try to make them more accessible to more people so they can sell more, but it's like, well then just like cut back on the budget and like still sell to your hardcore audience because you're going to alienate them. And I think that this has been like the state of fighting games at least for like the last couple of releases on all the big titles. Mortal Kombat 1, which I'm not really into
Yep.
Mortal Kombat, but that one was they dropped the ball on. The Street Fighter
Soul
6,
Calibur 6, I thought was like
Soul
that.
Calibur 6, yeah, very like they put in like really easy to enter moves so that you can turn the tides easily. Tekken 8, like I said, Street Fighter 6 has some mechanics in there, and I don't like the roster much, and others. So and I think that there's like a place, oh, like the new Guilty Gear Strive, that one, another one. They really tone down the complexity and the depth of that in order to make it more casual appeal. But I think ultimately it alienates both because I think casual gamers aren't going to play them anyway. You're trying to
Right.
get people into a genre that's inherently like complex and has a high learning curve, and I wouldn't want the genre to disappear because I'm a big fan of them. So yeah, I mean, it's
It's basically the whole like, trying to appeal to everyone appeals to no one thing.
yes, yes. I don't know if I have a solution to that. The only thing I can think of is, like I said, we have to spend less money developing so that the profit margins don't have to be as high, so that you don't have to
Yeah.
like,
So a miss isn't so detrimental, to the company and to
yeah,
the jobs and whatnot. I think you need to have smaller budgets too, so that like you can experiment more, like with mechanics and
yeah.
otherwise. And if it doesn't work out, like it's not the end of the world. But
I also think you should break up the unions. So, in my opinion, because
well, definitely the writers. I mean, they're not really doing
yeah,
a good job these days, anyway.
yeah, yeah.
But I know we got like that was like good shit, but we got a little off track. I don't think you got to finish like your first like piece of gaming hardware. You talked about Space Invaders,
Oh,
Pac-Man,
you
the
got Atari
Atari,
20.
and
Yeah, the Atari 2600 was the first one, and we had a shit ton of games, but like I only remember a couple of them that were decent. But again, back then, like everything was just like, I don't know, shoot 'em ups and maze games. Like there wasn't much, in depth, right? Then I think we had that for a while, and I the next time I got a console was when I graduated from 8th grade, and my uncle said that if I graduated and I got good grades, I would get an NES, and he got me an NES, and that was it. Like I was really hooked. I had Super Mario, Wrecking Crew, Kung Fu because it came with it, Duck Hunt. I think I had Duck Hunt. Yeah, I did have Duck Hunt because I got the gun too, and I love that. That was yeah, that would be my next console that I got into was the 8-bit Nintendo. Super Mario Brothers 2, Castlevania. When I
so that
when
was
I
like your
saw
first real console was the NES.
yeah, yeah, the
A good place
NES.
to start.
When I beat Castlevania and I saw like the end credits, because that was like the first game I ever saw that had end credits, like a movie. I thought it was a movie, like the castle falling, it crumbles down, and they play some music and the credits roll. Like Konami knew how to make a game just to like draw you in. They
Oh yeah,
back
like even on the
then,
NES, like Ninja
yeah,
Gaiden,
on the
like have
NES,
like its
yeah,
cutscenes were like next level for the time.
yeah,
I
Ninja
mean, like
Gaiden, yes,
you
yes,
talked about like the simplicity of like these pre NES games, like these second gen console games, arcade games. Most of them are like single screen type arcadey games. But
mm-hmm.
then like like the jump from that to the NES to things like Metroid or Castlevania or Zelda or whatever must have been massive and really crazy to see at the time.
Yeah, and it was the first home console that made where the games actually looked like the arcade counterparts. So when you got Super Mario Brothers at home, it was amazing because back then you had to go to the arcade for the good stuff. That was how it was, right? Like anything you played at home was sort of like, secondary. But Super Mario Brothers was identical. It was the same thing on both. And suddenly it was like the world was at your fingertips. Like you could play games that you didn't have to go to the arcade to play. You could play them at home if you had it. And of course, once your friends got Nintendos, and they would get games that you didn't have so that you can bring yours to their house and they can bring theirs to your house. And so like I discovered that. And I think the first game that, like, I love Castlevania. I would play it. I remember getting good enough that I could beat it in like a half hour. Like you beat the whole game. So back then games were short too, or at least by today's standards. So I could
And
beat
to
Castlevania in
compensate,
like,
often they made them really fucking hard back then.
yes, they did. But once you
Like
got good,
anyone who
you like,
struggles with games nowadays would not have lasted in the
no,
NES era,
no.
like at all.
No. Castlevania is probably one of the harder ones too. Because like every jump is a commitment, and every attack is a commitment because it's got like a slow wind up, and you have to like time everything. They did a really good job with that one. Um, but then I think the game that really like had a major change or an effect on me in terms of like what games could be was actually the original Mega Man. When my friend told me about that game, I thought he was lying. Like I thought that game couldn't exist.
Being
He
able
was
to,
like,
like, choose, like, what stage you tackle and, like, whatever
yeah, and
order you wanted
also
to
you
is was
well, the big
revolutionary at
one
the time.
was yeah, the big one was when you kill the monster, you get his powers. And I was like, "What?" So yeah, and that was it. And I think from that point on, I
It's really
remember
interesting, by the
saying,
way, that you
"Mhm,
started with Mega Man 1, because
yeah,
most
Mega Man
people
1."
started with 2. Most people were really off put by the, American box art of the first game.
Oh yeah, the box art was ugly. But
Infamously horrible. Good
I
game,
will
though.
die on this hill. I think Mega Man 1 is I like it more than 2 because I like the challenge of 1. Actually, 2 was made easier than 1.
Yeah. I think
So,
how they did 2, I think so I know the American version has, normal and difficult settings. I think, if I'm correct, Japan doesn't have that. It's just, like, their default is just what our difficult would be. And
yeah.
then, I think Europe also didn't get a choice, and it was just what our normal was, if I'm remembering correctly. I didn't play Mega Man 2 until, I played, like, the, Japanese, like, PS1 version on, like, PS3 that I downloaded. Uh, so it only had, like, difficult. So by the time I actually, like, played on the NES and did it on, like, normal, like, it's just, like, such a cakewalk. It's, like, almost
Yeah.
ridiculous. I still love Mega Man 2, but I do have a fondness for the first one I think most people don't have.
I do too. I have a fondness for the original one. And again, I think that it put things on the map too. So like, if it weren't for Mega Man, there'd be no Mega Man 2. So there is something about that that's special. And I think that even the devs know that because there's lots of callbacks to Mega Man 1, like the original Robot Masters and everything else. But yeah, like Mega Man and Castlevania basically were the games that showed me that there were two companies that always made quality at that time. That was Konami and Capcom. And so anything that they made, I paid attention to. It didn't mean I bought everything they made, but it meant that I was more inclined to sort of simp for those two companies. Even more
Well,
than
I'm glad that you
Nintendo,
brought
which
up Mega Man because that's gonna come in handy for a topic I'm gonna bring up a little later.
okay.
Um, and Capcom was just on fire in the '80s and the '90s. Like they could almost do no wrong. It was
Yeah.
a wonderful time to be a Capcom fan at that point, and they're going through a really nice like resurgence now. So I'm happy for them. Um,
Mhm.
I guess, like, that being said, like, I guess we're kinda naturally, getting into that, but I was gonna ask you just generally, like, what are, like, some of your favorite games? Like, if you had to just list off, say,
Wow.
5 of, like, your all-time top of your head. I know
Mhm.
that's hard for me, so I don't know how hard that is for you. But if you
Well,
just had to
shit.
just rattle off a few.
Yeah. So, because like sometimes these things are affected by the time I'm in. But okay. So for sure, I'm gonna say Street Fighter. I'm gonna say Mega Man. Like those are two big ones for me.
Is it just
Um,
Mega Man 1 in particular or
no,
Street Fighter
no. Well,
2
do
in
I have to name? I
particular?
like all the Mega Man games, so
Oh,
I
it's
don't
like,
know if I have
so
to
do I, but,
name
like, gun to your
like
head, you have to pick one. Which one are you picking?
oh, if I have to pick one, oh man. Well, I gotta pick one of the Mega Man
It doesn't even
games.
have to be classic series, it could be X, it could be,
Yeah,
Battle
yeah,
Network,
yeah.
whatever.
I never played the Battle Networks, and I mean X is fine, but I always preferred the original Mega Man. There was something very cutesy about it that I liked, and it has like this Astro Boy aesthetic. Of course, that's what it's inspired
Yeah, it
by.
does.
But I like that more because it's something appealing about that. So okay, if I had to pick a Mega Man game, I guess I will go with Mega Man 2, and the reason why I will is because despite the fact that it's not as hard, you could just play it on difficult. It has like the best Robot Masters design-wise and the best music. And the music of those games is amazing. I love the music for those games, but I think Mega
Oh,
Man
Mega Man 2
2
music is so good,
overall
dude.
probably has the best. Yeah, but overall, it's a tough choice though because they all have good. The first one had really catchy tunes. The third one has really good music too, but I have to go with 2 for the music. Um, so yeah, that's for
And what about
sure.
Street Fighter?
All right, for Street Fighter, it's a can I can I say three-way tie? Because okay, so in Street Fighter, I think that it's tough, but I really like Ultra Street Fighter 4 the most because it has the largest roster with the overall the best characters, and it has like a lot of in-depth systems, and it allows for different kinds of play styles. But I also am really inclined to like Street Fighter Alpha 3, the Max, I think it is, where they added like 4 new characters to that one as well. So it's a tie between those. Oh, okay, I'll make a choice. I'm gonna go with Street Fighter Ultra Street Fighter 4 as like the best. And I played 5, and I didn't care for it much. I played the demo for 6, what did not impress me, and I'm actually kind of like worried that Capcom is like dropping the ball on Street Fighter. So those are. Do I have to only name one game or just a couple? I is there
Like,
because I got to name
I was just
some
gonna give
other.
you like 5 like of your favorites
Okay.
like off the top of your head, and I'm actually really surprised so that even playing Street Fighter as long as you have, because I assume you probably found it at like 2, like most people
Oh
do.
yeah, I played the original fighting Street Fighter 1 in the arcades.
Oh,
I
you
was bad at
did.
it. It was not very
Was it
good,
called? It was called
but
Fighting Street
no, no,
here,
no. In
wasn't it?
arcades, it was called Street Fighter, but they released it
On
for in
TurboGrafx, it was
some
Fighting Street.
TurboGrafx. It was called Fighting Street, yeah. And you had to get like the CD for that. You had to get TurboGrafx CD. I didn't have a TurboGrafx, but a friend of mine, because you always have that friend that always gets everything, like
Oh yeah,
everything that they ask
everyone
for.
has that. Everyone has that only
Yeah,
child friend that just gets everything. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's kind of
So
cool because you get to go to their house and like
yeah,
demo the cool new shit. You know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, he had a TurboGrafx 16, and then he got the CD, and we played like Street Fighting Street, which I think he was the only person to finish the game because it's so hard, and it's janky as shit. Like it was one of the early. It was obviously one of the first fighting games. So like the idea behind it wasn't even a thing yet, right? So this is why I give a lot of respect to Capcom for coming up with creating Street Fighter 2, because Street Fighter 2 changed gaming completely in my opinion. Like
Oh yeah, no, big time.
when the game came out, it was categorized back then. We started having, Nintendo Power and these sort of magazines like EGM. They categorized Street Fighter 2 as an action game because there was no such thing as a fighting game. Like that didn't exist as a category, even though there were games like ER Kung Fu and Karate Champ, um, and of course Street Fighter One. But they weren't this. This was like different because it could be competitive. There were multiple characters to choose from, and I mean, who like the person behind that was genius, and it created a new genre called fighting games. And then everyone else, because that made so much money, especially in the arcades, it was killing it. Other people try to get on board, which is how you got Mortal Kombat, and then the Primal Rage and these other sort of really bad fighting games, Time Killers and Bloody Roar. Bloody Roar? Yeah, Bloody Roar,
Oh
right?
yeah, I
Is that
remember
the
Bloody Roar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bloody Roar. Um but yeah, like those kind well, Bloody Roar is the one with you could transform. That's a good game. But like the one I was thinking about was the in the arcades, it was Primal Rage where you're all like dinosaurs, and it was like a stop motion, which is kind of a cool idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and Mortal Kombat and stuff, and they put in fatalities and but like if it weren't for Street Fighter, those things wouldn't exist. So yeah, I'm gonna say Street Fighter 4 is I think where Capcom peaked in the Street Fighter franchise. And I also really like Resident Evil, and I will say my favorite Resident Evil is probably Resident Evil 5, and the reason why is because I play it with my wife, and we always have a good time. It's a co-op one. It got shit on, for a number of reasons. Like, they were like, "Oh, the horror isn't there. The two-player thing doesn't work well. The AI of the second player is awful." I've never played with the AI. I always play with my wife, and something racism because it's in Africa. But Resident Evil 5 is
Yeah.
my favorite Resident Evil. So
No, I think that's an unpopular take, but I think your logic is sound for sure.
yeah, I know it's
The
an
only
unpopular
Resident
take.
Evil game I've ever played is 7. I'm very much
7?
slacking on that
That's
series. Yeah.
really different from the other ones, but a good
Oh, I
one.
know.
7 is good. Yeah. Um, But yeah, I like the Resident Evils. And let me
Like, give
think.
me two more. Give me two more
All
top of your
right,
head.
two more. All right. So I don't. I'm kind of like hesitant to pick something that I've been playing lately because the thing is that yeah, I mean they're like more recent, but Tomb Raider, the original Tomb Raider was like a big deal. So that's one of my favorites because I think it also I think about games that have changed gaming, and I think of that one. Um, so yeah, Tomb Raider and I don't know. I guess I gotta go with uh let me see. I gotta go with for my last one. I feel like I'm not gonna pick the right thing.
Well,
I
I'll give
okay,
you a
so
second to think. I mean, like,
I'll
you're right
yeah,
though about
I
Tomb
know you
Raider.
guys can
Like,
edit. Yeah, Tomb
yeah, yeah,
Raider.
yeah. No, you're right
Yeah,
about Tomb Raider. I mean, the first like big full review of a game I'm doing for my channel is going to be the first Uncharted game. And
yeah.
Uncharted wouldn't
Uncharted's great.
exist without Tomb Raider.
Yep, that's right. I'm actually gonna
I
be
mean,
playing through the Uncharted's at some point on my channel. I'm gonna play through all of them.
oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, this year. I've played them
I've,
before, but yeah.
I've heard four and the spin-off are a little woke, but I haven't seen
Oh
it
yeah.
myself. That's just secondary. I
4
couldn't say.
I okay, so 4 is great, but the woke parts really suck, but there's not a lot of that. Um, I never played the spinoff, I didn't care because
There's
like, by
also the
that
other
time, I was
spin-off. There's one
burned.
on the Vita,
Yes, there was, I never played
which I've
that
heard
one.
is good.
Golden
Golden Abyss, I
something?
think.
Golden Abyss, yeah. Yeah, I
I've heard
never
it's
played
pretty
that
good.
one. Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it is. So a lot of the portables, they got slept on because nobody had portables.
Oh, the Vita in
So,
particular was infamously slept
yeah.
on. The Vita was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. All right. I got two more games I want to name, and they're both by the same developer.
Go ahead.
And it's so one is Armored Core. Armored Core 6 is amazing, but only because it does everything that the old Armored Cores did. I was a huge Armored Core fanboy. I love that game. And again, it all comes back to like my memories of playing it with my friends. So, we were really into the old Armored Cores, and it was to the point where I shit you not, we would bring our PlayStations. We were like grown ass men at this point. We bring our PlayStations. I bring my PS1 to my friend's house with our memory cards, and he had a FireWire, and we would connect two PlayStations and two TVs, like tube TVs, and we would play against each other in Armored Core. People plug their memory cards in, load up their mechs, and then we'd fight because that was the only way you could do, like a death match in Armored Core, and it was like a 1v1 thing. And we played the shit out of that. Like nothing but fantastic memories of Armored Core. So, in keeping with that, though, I've really, really been into Armored Core 6. And I think that it's like an excellent entry. Unfortunately, I don't have my friends to play with at this point, so it's a little bit of a damper. But Armored Core is great, and I got to give it to Bloodborne as my last game because I love everything From Software does, but I've never put more time into one of their games as I did into Bloodborne, even more than Elden Ring and the Soul series. I love those games, but like something about Bloodborne was so perfect. Like it had a great genre that hadn't been done very often. It had great character design, art design, which is very important to me, and fantastic music, and it was fun to play. I guess the one thing that people hate about it is that it's at 30 frames, but I don't know. That doesn't, I'm not one of those people that counts frames. So those are my games right there.
I will say I've never played Armored Core. When 6 came out, I was very interested, but I never pulled the trigger on it. I don't remember why. Maybe something else was kind of occupying my time
It
at
came
the
out at a
moment.
weird time. I think other things were out at the time, and Armor Core
Yeah.
6 did get overshadows.
I will say
Like,
though that you're the first person I've heard mention FireWire in maybe like a decade or more. So that brought back some memories. If that shows my age at all, if that I
yeah,
even know what
yeah,
the fuck that is. Um, as far as Bloodborne goes, Bloodborne is amazing. I don't know if you've
yeah.
played Lies of P or not, but you'd probably love that game.
I did play the demo and I liked it. Um, yeah, I did like it. I might pick that up at some point in the future. I'm waiting for it to like kind of go on sale or whatever. But I'm kind of, despite the fact that gaming is like not it's going through a bit of a tumultuous period. I have a pretty big backlog, so I'm still trying to get through.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I still own
Yeah.
like all my old consoles and like I've had like basically every console almost ever, except for like the
Hmm.
PS5 and the Switch 2. So yeah, my backlog is fucking massive, which is why like
Yeah.
I'm doing Uncharted, like it's a PS3 game.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, like Lies of P is amazing. Like really recommended. One of the best games I played in a while. Um, so I guess like, now that we kind of have an idea of like your game taste, like just what would you say is like your favorite console of all time? Like what's the one you had the best memories of? You maybe just love their game
Oh, that's
library or
easy.
whatever other
Easy.
reason.
That's an easy one. PlayStation 2.
Really?
The
That's
Oh
not what I
yeah.
would have guessed for you at all. My
I
guess for
didn't
you was PS1.
I did like the PS1 because of Armored Core and stuff. But the PS2, it's probably in terms, no, it's just the best console. Like it's just the best one. Like there's no bad games on it. Well, there's bad games on it, but it has the most big hits. And it was like the RPGs, like Final Fantasy 10 was on PS2, and you
10
know
and 12. And I guess
10 and
11 was
12
too,
and
technically.
11. Well, 11. I did have 11 on PS2. I was hooked on that shit. Don't ever get into MMOs, kids. Don't do it. They're not good for
I
you.
think RuneScape, old school RuneScape is the only one I ever got into, really.
Yeah. No, I mean
Man,
like Devil
Final
May
Fantasy
Cry.
10 blew me
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 10, Devil May Cry. That was when it debuted on PS2. Resident Evil 4 was on there, which is the first time they did the over the shoulder thing.
I
There
don't know if
was
maybe you're a little
a
old for this, but like Kingdom Hearts also, I thought was
Yeah, I
really
didn't play
awesome.
Kingdom Hearts, but that was on there. That was a big one. There were a number that it had, and the thing is, at this point, games were still like they were still kind of fringe. Like I guess they weren't as mainstream as they are now. So like these big corporations and bureaucrats and developers and investors that are involved in, I think they're sort of eating away at the hobby. They weren't there at that time because it was still sort of looked down on as a hobby, but there was such good stuff coming out of it. First person shooters were blowing up and on the PS2 in that era. A lot of the games that were like all the GTAs, San Andreas,
Yep.
Vice City, and
Yep.
3. You know, yeah. I mean, the PS2 was just. I mean, I have my PS2 library in the other room. I could go look at whatever else I bought, but there was a lot. I Armored Core was on that console as well, and I played the shit out of those games. So I would say, and I have to. It's a tough call though because the PS1 and even the PS3. I think the PS3 is unfairly maligned, but I was a PlayStation guy for the most part. Um, I would say they all had good titles, but I think overall I got to go with the PlayStation 2. And they even had they introduced the network stuff. I think that
Yeah.
there was this great uh, Resident Evil game that is often overlooked by people called Outbreak, and it was a four-player co-op online game, and it was one of the early online games. And that one was excellent because it was like playing Resident Evil, except that there were three other people, and they weren't like how like the characters in Resident Evil are like kind of cops and like special agents, and they got guns and stuff. Like these are just regular folks, and so like there might be one guy with a gun, and then there's like a little girl that can like crawl into small spaces, and there's another guy who has like a special skill, and you have to work together to like beat the levels using your abilities. It was like crazy innovative for the time period. Oh, and Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty was on PS2. I mean, fucking, it was a really great game was there was this developer, I can't remember their name, but they made these really cool Lord of the Rings games, which were like action beat 'em
Oh
up games.
yeah. Yeah, my dad would
Yes.
play the Two Towers one.
Yeah, Two Towers and there was Return of the King. That those games were on PS2, and they also made that same developer made a D&D one called Demon Stone, which basically played the same way. I did a stream playing that game like last year, around December last year. And yeah, those were excellent. Like it was just really good stuff. A lot of they had a lot of these like action RPGs like Champions of Norath and Baldur's Gate on there. It just had, like I said, it just had so much that was so good. So it was probably my favorite consoles, PlayStation 2. Yeah.
I'm somewhat surprised you picked that since you've pretty much been gaming since the beginning. But
Hmm.
that being said, I can't I can't really come up with any reasons why it wouldn't be the PS2. I mean, the PS2 is amazing. It really can't even be overstated, just how great that was.
No.
Um, and I would say that that's probably the best generation of gaming ever. Between
Yeah.
that, the GameCube, the Xbox, I guess some people would consider the Dreamcast in there, some wouldn't, but
Yeah, that's what I would that's what I would say is that it is I think that's why I have that opinion. Because it was the best generation. Even the Xbox had a lot of great games on it. And I
oh
didn't
yeah,
own
yeah.
one, but like
The
the
Halo
original
games,
Xbox gave us
Fable,
Halo. Yeah.
Morrowind, Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Republic Commando, like
Yep.
the Xbox tended to have the better versions of like the multi-platform games too, because it was just more
They
powerful
did.
hardware.
It was more powerful hardware.
I remember playing,
Yeah.
like you talked about first-person shooters on like PS2 and whatnot. One of the big ones was like Medal of Honor, like particularly like
Mhm.
it was Allied Assault on PC, but then like Frontline on console, like that was a big one. The one that starts off and like you're like at Normandy Beach on D-Day and shit. And
Yep.
I played that
Oh yeah, I
originally on
remember that one.
PS2 and I loved it. And I remember like way, 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 way later, like I got it on Xbox and it had multiplayer. And I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I didn't know this game had multiplayer. I thought it was weird because I played like Medal of Honor Underground on PS1, which I loved, and it had multiplayer. And I thought the one thing
Mhm.
that was disappointing about Frontline is that it didn't have multiplayer. Turns out it just didn't have it on PS2 for whatever reason, maybe
Mhm.
some kind of
Mhm.
technical or performance reason.
Well,
But it did on
yeah.
Xbox. And there's a lot of instances like that, like games
Well,
like 007 Nightfire. Like you can have more bots on
mhm.
Xbox than you could on PS2. Things like that.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I don't disagree. I think that the one disadvantage that the PlayStation 2 had was essentially the fact that it was a less powerful console, but also at that time, because the PlayStation was still like a Japanese console, like more out of that camp, right? They just did not get the network thing until way later. Like the internet stuff, like the online, content was really like refined in the West, compared to the East, especially if you played on PC, for example. So it
Yeah.
wasn't a difficult transition for Microsoft to introduce online content as quickly as it did with the Xbox. I think that's when was it the 360 when they started the online, or was it the original
No,
Xbox?
the original. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the original one,
original.
right? Yeah,
They
they
launched
did
it
because the
with,
PS2.
I think they launched it with Halo 2 in 2004.
Yeah, yeah. So and the
So we have to thank
PlayStation.
Microsoft for
So
that, I
I
suppose.
did. Yeah, we do. Yeah,
That being
because
said, though,
Sony
it's
didn't.
also kind of a double-edged sword there too, because, like, at the same time, it's like, yeah, they did kind of pioneer, like, console gaming online, which is awesome, but they also, like, introduced, like, paying for online for console, which is lame, and I loved how, you didn't have to pay online for the, PS2 games that were online or,
Mhm.
even, like, the entirety of the PS3. So I do kind of resent them for that. I think that's
Dude,
kind of, like, inherently a
I'm
scam.
I'm really glad that you said that because way back when Xbox Live was first being talked about, I said this is a bad idea, and I did not agree with it. And my friends, they were like, "No, no, no, that's going to pay for the servers. And it's going to be so stable and great." Because I remember that, and I said, "No, that this is a problem because right now, even though I didn't have a PC, but I was like, people are gaming online right now with their PCs for free. Like they're using like I forget what the name of there was like a thing they would play Alien versus Predator online on their PC or Unreal Tournament online, and they're not paying anything. And I'm like, this is a problem because they're going to use this to set precedent. And I said back then, I said, if this Xbox thing happens, then everyone else is going to jump on board if they get the enough support. So Sony's going to do it too, and Nintendo will do it too, right? They're going to use it to sell stuff, or they're going to make you pay for online, or they're going to create tiers where they're going to be like, well, if you don't pay anything, you can do this, but if you pay, you can do this extra stuff. Like they're going to essentially create, a system, a hierarchy of payments, right, from free to whatever the highest one is, to allow access to something that we already have access to. And they thought that I was just being like a Sony fanboy because Sony didn't charge and Microsoft was going to charge. But I said, but yeah, but if you do this, Sony's going to start charging. And sure enough, they did. Like PS3 didn't have this at all. And I really liked that. I did a lot of online gaming on my PlayStation 3. And people would say, well, the network isn't as good. Like I was constantly getting my friends telling me the network's not as good on there and
It
whatever. And
was a
I
cope.
didn't
It
really,
was always a cope.
yeah, it was
It
always
was
a
never
cope.
true.
And then, but then when they brought what happened, they brought in PlayStation Plus, and I was like, I can't even blame them because Microsoft was like making money hand over fist with Xbox Live, and then it goes beyond that because then they were like, well, PlayStation did try to like soften the blow by saying, if you get PlayStation Plus, we'll give you access to, because at the time I think Xbox you were just paying for the service, the online
Right,
servers,
and
right?
then
But
PlayStation
I
Plus was
was
like, "Here, you're paying for
well,
this service," and it's like, you get
and we're gonna give you
cloud saves and
games
free
and
games or whatever,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
how they,
yeah,
like, ushered you into the door and got you to accept, like, when the PS4 came out, that they were gonna start fucking you, you know? And,
yeah.
like, with the original Xbox, I was kinda too young to, like, have that, like, foresight and take. I was,
Hmm.
I think the Xbox came out when I was, like, 6,
Yeah.
um, but,
But I mean, I
like,
saw the
I
writing
think
on the
we've both
wall back
been
then.
I saw
Hmm.
it on the wall with the 360, you know?
Hmm.
So I think we've both been completely vindicated on that take for sure. And everyone who's
100%.
saying like, "Oh, you're playing on PS3 like you're having like an inferior experience." I had a great online experience on the PS3. Like I don't know what the fuck these guys are talking about.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was
I was
perfectly stable and good. I had
right.
no problems with it.
I mean, I think the real difference was because I do remember this, and I still think it's a cope. But I remember my friend who had an Xbox 360 at the time. The way that you could get into a room to play, say, Left 4 Dead or Halo or whatever, Gears of War was like the big one they were playing. Is that you just sort of like made friends in the lobby, and then in the game itself, in the not in the game, I'm sorry, you did it through the Xbox Live service to connect to people, and then you could just jump into the game together. With the PS3, because they weren't centralizing the access, the way that you connected with people online varied from game to game. But it was like an inconvenience that I was like, I didn't even really notice. So like, I couldn't just jump into like on Steam, you can just go click on a person's name and invite them to play the game, right? That's like the equivalent on Xbox Live. But on the PlayStation 3, if I wanted to play Resident Evil with a friend of mine, like play Resident Evil 5, I had to go into Resident Evil, and then in there was a request to do the multiplayer, etc., which means that, the servers were all like peer to peer, or they were managed within their own little ecosystem. Like if it was Warhawk, which was online all the time,
Great
that
game,
they
by the way.
managed their own. It is a great game. They managed it in the game itself, not through some third party, which is what I believe Xbox Live was doing. I think it was like a bit of a trade off, but I didn't mind. Like I played a lot of Resistance 2 online. I had a great experience. I played a lot of Warhawk when it first came out, and there was plenty of other ones. Yeah, RE5, RE6,
Mag was a great exclusive Xbox didn't
Mag.
have. I
Yeah,
loved
yeah,
Mag.
Mag. Yeah, that was a good one. Little Big
Yeah,
Planet.
I think the only thing
Yeah.
Xbox really had was, like, they had, like, the cross game, like, party chat stuff, but you know
Hmm.
what? Like, I kinda hate maybe this is, like, blasphemous to say, I kinda hate cross game party chat. Because on PS3, when you didn't have the option, game chat was so much more lively. And like now, like everyone is only in party chat, everyone or like in Discord or whatever. So like game chat for most games now is just
It's
completely
it's moot.
fucking dead.
Yeah.
It's late. Like I haven't heard a single person talk on Halo Master Chief Collection. I've been playing that game since like 2019. Like nobody, like not a fucking soul. It's
Hmm.
really disheartening. Like I don't get like the slurs and the death threats that I cherished so much on like a Halo 2, like on the original Xbox. Like that's gone.
Yeah.
The only place I can still find like active game chat is like the one life modes in Call of Duty. Like that's it.
Hmm.
And that's because
Yeah.
half
That.
that game's appeal is just being a piece of shit to people online. That's that's really half the appeal at or more. So,
Oh,
it sucks.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's why. Like one thing that I just as an aside, I think this is a bit of a digression, but I think that's why I like games like Repo because they do this thing where they understand that people are not likely going to use in-game chat if they can avoid it, unless you make the in-game chat fun to use. So like
You pretty much have to make it like a mechanic of the game in order to get
yeah,
people
yeah,
engaged with it.
exactly.
Yeah.
You make it a mechanic to get people engaged, and I think a lot of these what people call like friend slop games. They do that so that people are using the in-game chat to play because it does add a layer of fun to it. Now, I'd like to see that expanded. I think in Resistance, the Resistance 2 game, they also had in-game chat, and if you spoke, your character's mouth moved, if I remember correctly. And that was like a big deal because that never been done before at the time. At least not, I've never seen it before. I mean, in Halo, everyone's wearing helmets, so they don't have to do that. But like, but it was just a neat little touch that I saw. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't care about cross game. Why would I talk to somebody that's playing a different game? Like, I want to be in the moment with the game that I'm playing, and I want the people that are playing with me in the moment too.
Right, and
So,
I don't like playing single player games really, like, when I'm talking to other people either. I feel like I'm, like,
yeah,
killing my own immersion, or, like, I'd rather just, if we're all gonna be in, like, a party, we should all be playing the same game. But I
yeah,
just think, like, back in the day, like, it was so easy to, like, meet people and, like, actually socialize, like, with new people. Like, I'll just use Call of Duty as an example again. Like, you meet people, like, the lobbies don't disband, back in the day, so, like, sometimes you're playing, like, 5, 6, 7, whatever games in a row with the same people. Sometimes, like, they're cool and they're chill, and you guys group up, and you make, like, new, like, online buddies, and you form clans. Like, that social aspect that, like, made COD and Halo, like, awesome is gone, and, I find that very sad.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, yeah, I think that that might be more of a social issue than a gaming issue. I think that people are more disconnected despite like having so much access to other people. And then so they've
I
become
agree,
kind
yeah.
of antisocial, you know?
But I think
Um
there's like the way that like gaming infrastructure is now like isn't helping, especially when like
mm,
a lot of games now you can't even talk shit. Like you'll get reported for fucking everything. I mean,
oh,
like
that's true. Yeah.
even like the newer Call of Duty games have like AI chat monitoring. Like you call someone like a faggot
Ugh,
or whatever, and it's
gross.
like, and then you get like auto like con banned. It's fucking ridiculous.
Mhm. That's true. Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's just so antithetical to like what I want
Mhm.
from like I guess an online experience. And I think
Yeah.
it's also contributing to everyone being so fucking soft.
That's what I mean when I say yeah, it's kind of a social thing, but I do think the policing doesn't help. Um because like
I
it
mean,
sort
back
of
on PS3, there were no reporting, like, at all. Like, you could say
no.
anything to anybody, and you just had to, like you could block them, like, if you wanted to, but you couldn't report them. You couldn't get them, like, in trouble for saying whatever they wanted to say, but you could be like, "Alright, I've had enough. I'm gonna mute you or block you," like, if you wanted to. Or, like, it's, like, legendary, like, with getting, like, crazy message like, voice messages on, like, 360 from, like, people you pissed off, like I thought there was something really cool to that, and it's, like, almost entirely gone. Now, like, the meta for trolling on, like, online games is to, like, make somebody mad, like, through, like, gameplay, and then get them to, like, say a slur at you, and then you, like, report them, and, like, that
Mhm.
sucks. Like, all you're doing is, like, cutting them off from everybody else. I just inherently, like, I just don't like it. It just really bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the solution to it is, but um I do think that yeah, there's just too many obstacles in terms of like allowing people to freely associate. And that's probably as a result of like the sort of normalization of this hobby, whereas people who don't have the stomach for rudeness are basically like in control of um the conversation. So,
It's a lot of
but I
female
don't know.
gamers too.
There, uh, I could go there. I could go there, but
You're more than
um,
qualified to, say what you think,
I
but
know.
if you try
Yeah.
to get on, like, Call of Duty now or whatever, like, every, like, 2 or 3 games, like, you're gonna find, like, some fat girl on the other team, and, like, her entire team is, like, a party of, like, her simps. It's unfucking believable. But,
Hmm.
I mean, I guess in a way, like, if you're interested in that kind of, interaction, all you have to do is, like, call her fat, and we'll have the whole lobby freak out at you. It's kinda funny. But it's just the dynamics are just so different. But like let's like pivot a little bit. Like this next topic is kind of going to blend like what we talked about at first and like the gaming topics. Um So like this is something you would definitely know about, and this is where I found out I didn't know about you, but I knew about Honey Badger Brigade back in the day during this
Yeah.
event. Uh, for people who like weren't around for it or didn't know about it, could you like just briefly explain like Gamergate One? Like what was that exactly? Like from your perspective?
Well, Gamergate One was a consumer revolt. Generally, like at the first in the beginning of that was revolved around this kind of like pushback against games journalists that were attacking their own audience because their audience had concerns about the sort of like incestuous relationships between gaming journalists and the gaming press and games developers. So everybody knows about the Dorito Pope and the kinds of like things that games journalists would do. They would give like favorable reviews to bad games while
Just real
also
quick, like for anyone who
advertising.
doesn't know, like what is the Dorito Pope?
Oh,
Just
it's
for someone who's not in the know.
Jeff Keighley, I
Right,
think he's like the head of the Games Awards or something like that, and they call him the
right.
Dorito Pope. I think it's because of all of the advertising, and that was the thing. Like it was around the time that gaming was becoming very, very profitable for advertisers and for people who run these websites. And so like they would flood. If you go to IGN at the back in the day, you'd see like ads all over the place, or GameSpot or whatever, and it was usually for whatever the new title was. And most gamers didn't really think anything of it, but like if you look back on it, you realize that yeah, these guys were investing in these. They were the games developers were investing in these websites to promote their games. So you wouldn't get, or you weren't sure you were going to get an honest review of something. Like for example, there was like this the Kane and Lynch fiasco where the Kane and Lynch game was getting all kinds of favorable reviews, despite the fact that I guess gamers didn't like it that much. And it was probably like overshadowed by a bunch of other games that were doing the same thing better.
I
And
guess I
so
should feel
they,
good then that the game magazines I read at the time were kind of shitting on the Kane and Lynch games. Maybe they
yeah,
were a little more
but there
genuine.
were some. Well, that's what I'm saying. It was like I don't know what the truth is because you never know these days. But my understanding is that they were getting like favorable reviews in exchange for things like access to award shows, and like they would fly them out to like check out the games, and they would get to play the demos early or whatever it is. So there was obviously like a conflict of interest going on because gamers wanted the truth about whether or not they want to spend their hard-earned money on a game, as opposed to just like being fed a line of bullshit so that like those people can get access to the next game show or go out to the next big dinner or whatever it is, right?
And this is still
So,
ongoing, by the way. Like
oh
you see
yeah,
this with
that's
like YouTubers and streamers, and I hate to bring
absolutely.
up Call of Duty again. It's just a series I played too much of. But like the YouTubers who like jerk the series off will always get invited to the events, and the ones who are
Yes.
critical will always be kept out. And
Yes.
it's a problem everywhere. And so like
Yes.
we haven't really, I guess, really defeated it. It's still very much prevalent, but at least we're aware of it.
No. No, not at all. But I mean, the thing is that's what they were fighting for at the time. Now, when Gamergate happened, I had already realized that the real problem wasn't actually that, because that was like something you could just ignore. Like you could just sort of like, okay, well, I don't, these people are not credible. I just won't go to IGN or GameSpot or Rock Paper Shotgun or Destructoid or whatever for my reviews. I'll just like get it from word of mouth, like I've always done. Like since I was little, I learned about Mega Man because my old friend from grammar school told me about it. That I didn't read in a magazine somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That or you go to
yeah,
Blockbuster and you look at
yeah, and
the
you
like
rent
you look at
something,
the
or
cover
you,
or like the back of the case, and then
well,
you
maybe
see the
hopefully
cool
not the cover.
screenshots.
But yeah,
Well, for Mega Man
exactly.
1, not the cover.
No, not the
But
cover.
you look at the screenshots on the back, you're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And back in the day, like, you had a really good chance of just picking up a random game from Blockbuster and just being a banger.
And it being solid, yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, again, the people behind it, they just love what they were doing. So, but I knew that the problem wasn't that. I knew the problem was actually an ideological problem. It was a problem with the belief system of the people involved in reviewing games, particularly those people, but even also some people who were developing games. And that gaming was starting, because it was becoming more popular, it was becoming more, let's say, in line with the sort of mainstream liberal consensus, which which thinks of itself as like an underdog, but it's really just like the predominant worldview, right?
Is
And
this where we are gonna get into, like, say, Phil Fish or Anita
yeah,
Sarkeesian, Zoe
Phil
Quinn,
Fish,
these
Anita
types?
Sarg, exact.
Would
Well,
you
Zoe
could you also
Quinn,
explain, like, who these people are?
yeah, yeah. So some people would say that Zoe Quinn is the real like patient zero of Gamergate. Um, if because this is the reason. It's just so Zoe Quinn was a person who developed a game, and I put that in quotes because it wasn't really a game, called
If you're
Depression
talking
Quest.
about yeah, I had to study
Depression Quest.
Depression Quest in college. Could you believe
Did you
that
have to
shit?
study it? Do you
I did,
really?
and
Oh my.
I
See, like,
wrote a report on it shitting on it too.
yeah, so you see, that's actually a really good microcosm for what the problem is. Were you going to school to learn how to make video games?
Yeah, I went to a private school, specifically for game design, and it wasn't, like, a particularly, like, woke school or anything, like, cringe like that, like, that's kinda, like, why I picked it,
Yeah,
because,
you weren't trying to find that, but
yeah, but that particular class, though, I did have to, write a report on Depression Quest. They gave me a good grade, though, even though I shit on it, so,
there
I'll
you
give them
go.
credit for that.
Well, that's nice, but the point is that it was worthy of recognition that it went into a curriculum for a school. And it just this does kind of always go back to education, but I don't want to get into like the, Frankfurt School history lesson here. We're just going to try and stay with what happened with Gamergate. So, Zoe Quinn developed a game called Depression Quest. In Depression Quest, you make a series of decisions. There's no graphics. It's all text based, and surprise, surprise, all roads lead to depression. Like essentially, the game is saying it's not even a game, really. The game is telling you that depression is not something you can simply, like fight out of. You just have to deal with it, right? You just have to cope, and that wouldn't be a problem. Like you're allowed to make whatever indie title you want, and I don't give a shit. Like somebody made Braid, and I didn't care for Braid's message of like, oh, you're actually the stalker bad guy. Hoo hoo. Men are stalkers, whatever. Um, but Depression Quest was getting all kinds of hype from all these game reviewers. And they were all hyping it up into high heaven, which is probably why, by the way, your school it drew the attention of your school because they were hyping it up so much, and people were like, "No, this is trash. Like, why are you guys hyping this?" And so people started looking into Zoe Quinn's associations, and apparently, as far as we know, she was like essentially doing sexual favors in exchange for good coverage of her game. And the purpose of that was ultimately to give her clout and exposure, which it did. And some of it wasn't positive. And so you got the meme of Five Guys Burgers and Fries because there were five guys supposedly implicated in these relations, and many of them were, involved in the gaming industry. Um, and of course, when people called her out on that, she played victim because that's what these people do, and essentially became a victim of harassment. And so right after that happened, if I remember correctly, forgive me if I get this wrong, the timeline, but I was definitely there for this. The games journal started putting out these articles saying gamers are dead and that we have to move away from the sort of mainstream, the base of the gaming audience because of how misogynistic they are and how poorly they treat women and how unwelcoming they are and all these other things. And so the people who rely on gamers to get their money, they attacked. And they did that across the board. Like a bunch of them all put them out at the same time, and it's famously known as the Gamers Are Dead articles, which hopefully you guys will put on the screen or something. And they was basically just calling them us all neckbeard virgins. This is before incel was like a thing we used, so they would just say that instead. Who hate women and all of this other stuff, right? And this didn't bode well because that's when the Gamergate hashtag came out. I believe it was Baldwin. I can't remember his first name, but he was an actor from Firefly, and he is the person who coined the hashtag Gamergate, and it blew up from there. But I knew, and we over at Honey Badger Radio, we were talking about this before it happened because we were looking at some of the feminist critiques of gamers and gaming, and that was coming out from Anita Sarkeesian and her YouTube channel at the time, Feminist Frequency. And it wasn't just her. There were lots of other content creators, but she was sort of like the most like well known. And it was all just to make money. Like she would claim to like video games, but she wasn't really into video games. She just wanted to make some money, and she was, I would say, savvy enough to understand that this was um, a genre that was untapped in terms of like a way to make media, and she did jump on that. Of course, she got a lot of help from Jonathan McIntosh, who was the guy who did all of the scripts for her, but because he's a man, it doesn't work. See, that's the thing too, is that when it comes to creating media, even though men dominate the podcast space, women who participate, they do a lot better because they're women. It's just true. So she was able to be way more successful than he was by virtue of being a woman talking about how bad women have it, ironically. And she made all these videos critiquing various games for their tropes, as she calls it. And the purpose of calling something a trope is so that you can get developers and people who create things to stop doing that. And but then the ultimate goal is to control it itself, to control the actual content, right? So we were calling this out before Gamergate even began. We saw the writing on the wall. We were like, okay, this is going to be a problem. People like her are going to insist to get involved with game development, to get involved with altering stories, to get involved with changing things to be less sexist and less harmful to women and all these other things. And at the time, when Gamergate was going on, there was kind of like a divide. I don't know if I'm like getting ahead of myself here, but there was a bit of a divide in the original Gamergate. There were the people who only wanted to accomplish the goal of addressing the issues of ethics in journalism, which is sort of like
Well,
end
this is
this.
where like the U's and like the Matt Jarbos kind of differentiate, right? Or at that
Yes.
time known as Mundane Matt.
Yeah,
And
mundane
I'm
Matt.
sure we'll
Yeah.
get to him a little down the timeline of
Yeah.
Zoe Quinn flagging his video down and kind of spurring, Jim, aka Mr. Medicare, to make his, at the time I think Internet Aristocrat was his name, but
Yes.
him to make the video on Gamergate, and that I think is when things really went nuclear. But I'm sure
Yes.
like that's where you're getting. I'm sure that's where we're close
Yeah,
to.
I'm getting to that. Well, the divide happened a little after that, so I guess I am getting a little ahead of myself. So yeah, Internet Aristocrat made his Five Guys uh, conspiracy theory video that infamously, I don't know if it went viral everywhere, but it was definitely like in my neck of the woods. So I was running into this content, and it was still primarily about Zoe Quinn's sort of unethical relationship with game reviewers. But I still contended at the time that she is not the problem, but she is a symptom. So she only had that access or influence because of simps, essentially, were male feminists, and their desire to police and protect women while also kind of like wanting to get with them. This is what happens in the lobbies you were just talking about. It's the
Yeah.
same
Male
behavior.
feminists are absolute fucking weasels, bro. Never trust any of them.
Yeah,
Ever. Never
but
trust a
like
cuck. But before we
yeah,
get
but
too ahead of ourselves here, like,
mhm.
can you tell me like what Matt Jarbo's video was about and like why it was flagged?
I I don't exactly remember. I think he was just covering the Zoe Quinn thing. I'm sorry, but I don't think I even watched that video because I
Well, I
knew
think
about
like that's
Monday
what made it
Matt.
egregious because like it wasn't like he wasn't doing anything like crazy, and like she like
No.
false DMCA'd him.
Yes, yes. No, she definitely did. I know that much. I couldn't tell you the actual content of what he made in the video because I thought it was probably pretty innocuous at the time, and it was Jim's the one who turned it up to 11 because essentially that's what happens. It was a Streisand effect, right? She tried to get it shut down and it ended up just amplifying the controversy even more. But do you know that that led to a suicide?
Yeah, it was one of Zoe Quinn's like ex-boyfriends, I think.
It was yeah, so she was I don't know like what the details of the relationship, like I don't know how serious it was or whatever. But there was a guy who was actually a developer, and he worked on a game. I can't remember it's got something to do with a cat, but he did like the music and stuff. His name was Alec Haloka, and he is, like a spurgy nerd, like progressive
A game with
guy.
a
Like,
cat. It wasn't Fez, was it? The Phil Fish game?
no, that's Phil Fish. No. It was something else. I just can't remember what it was called. Maybe Cat Eyes or something. We can look it up if you guys want. Well, the game
Zoe.
that Alec Haloka worked on, Night in the Woods, that's what it's called.
Oh yeah,
Night in the
yeah.
Woods and Aquaria. He worked on a couple of games. So he co-created Aquaria and Night in the Woods. So he's not an absolute nobody, right? But like the thing with Alec Haloka, and I made a video about this on my channel, Honey Badger Arcade. I gave a little bit of backstory because it was an anniversary of his passing. It was in August when he killed himself. The reason why he did it was because Zoe Quinn accused him of sexually assaulting her. Now, of course, she makes her whole job is about being a victim of something, right? So she accused him of sexually assaulting her, and of course, she doesn't give any details. She doesn't bring any receipts. She doesn't have any evidence, and everyone turned on him, including his own sister. They all just believed it. They were like, "Well, we got to believe victims." And I don't know if you guys know this, but like as bad as like getting raped is, getting accused of something that you didn't do, as heinous as that, when you don't believe in that, is actually traumatizing for people. Like if you remember, as an aside, Justice Brett Kavanaugh was running for office of the Supreme Court, or he was trying to get into office of the Supreme Court, and they were like having hearings and stuff. And that chick like accused him of like assaulting her, and it was like a whole thing that the people just kept talking about, even though he didn't do it. And he like wept, like he was traumatized by it, even though he had all of his ducks in a row. He had like, I mean, I've never even heard of anybody who had a diary that was this like detailed, and he was able to escape this accusation. But the accusation itself, there has been some psychological data that suggests that being falsely accused of rape is as psychologically traumatizing as it is to be raped. So like this guy who probably wouldn't hurt a fly and also bought into the believe women thing. So even he was like, well, maybe I did do something that I shouldn't have done. Like he was gaslit into thinking that it's possible that he stepped out of line somewhere. And so in order to like essentially escape like the torture he was going through, he killed himself. And nobody gave a shit. I mean, I basically bring it up every year because I want to know like this stuff is harmful. These are some of the things that I fight against because we have to get away from this, believe women crap. We need to believe evidence, right? And I made a video recently, a couple of them, about this because the conversations are happening now. There's this woman named Helen Andrews who wrote a really great essay called "The Great Feminization," where she talks about how when you get like a certain critical mass of women in any industry, the industry changes and becomes feminized, and it can be disastrous because it alters the way that the whole system runs. And that's not a problem in certain fields like medicine or veterinary care or something like that, where it's dominated by women. But in like the law, like in like in like let's say lawyers or judges, they don't follow the rule of law the same way. It becomes about context and it becomes about other things. So anyway, that's a side comment. But this is a real problem that we all have to wrestle with. And yeah, it causes suicide. So anyway, that's the Zoe Quinn thing. I said that this is an ideological problem. And Internet Aristocrat made his video about it and still made it about the incident. And that's probably good enough for like, damaging Zoe Quinn's reputation, which it did. But it also got her a lot of like support as well. She got to go to the United Nations and speak in front of the UN on like
Yeah, I
online
remember her
harassment.
and Anita
And Anita
Sarkeesian doing that.
Sarkeesian, they teamed
Yeah.
up. I think they like basically they probably didn't know each other before Gamergate happened, and then they probably reached out to each other after that.
I also had that
Um,
bully hunters thing.
yep, Bully Hunters, yep, done by the woman who paints her tits on stream. Yes, she was in. I don't remember her name, but there was a woman who was in charge of Bully Hunters, and she herself was like like one of these Twitch streamers that just gets naked online. So I guess that's not a problem. I don't know. Like, can you imagine being in one of those streams where there's a girl who hates men objectifying women, objectifying herself, and you can't say anything because you might objectify her? I couldn't put myself through that. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
It just
But
speaks to the
anyway,
incoherence of feminism,
yes,
especially
yes.
being a male feminist, which is just
Well,
preposterous,
it
like, oh, it's
should
crazy.
be. Yeah, but I mean, the truth is, though, most men are male feminists to some degree, just like most women are. That's why I say, like, this isn't just like a belief
Well,
system.
it's
This
because
is
we have a
actually,
gynocentric culture, sadly.
yes,
'Cause
it's
feminism has
widely.
won for so long for it's been, like, what, like, over 100 years at this point?
Yeah, yeah. This is like my contention with the boomers and a lot of Gen X is that they are also bought into this lie. So like, it's so
I
bought
think it's
in that like,
really breaking with the Zoomers and the young millennials,
oh,
though.
it is. I'm so glad. Um, but yeah, it is so ubiquitous. It's like it's the water we swim in. So I listen to people who talk about that are like like my age or whatever, like these guys like online, like even supposed conservative commentators, and they'll talk about women and men, and but the way that they do it tells me right off the bat you're still in the matrix, like you're still bought into this stuff. Because like if you have to make an land acknowledgement, you know what I mean by that. You know what a land acknowledgement is?
Of course.
Yeah. So if you have to make a land acknowledgement about women, we have to say, well, look, women have had it hard for most of history, and it was really bad for them, and men were the oppressors, and blah. But things are changing. Like you're already lost, dude. You bought into the lie because women. That's just never been true.
Well,
Like
pretty
no
much every
society.
female, like, quote, unquote, "conservative commentator" is, like, a
Oh
feminist,
yeah, they are.
covert or
Oh,
not. The only one I
absolutely.
can think of that really isn't is, like, Rachel Wilson. She's, like, the only one. But everyone else, like the Megyn Kellys
Mm-hmm.
and the Candace Owens and, like, all these
Mm-hmm.
people are all covert feminists, every one of them.
Well, yeah, they don't. Well, I don't even think it's covert, but yeah, they don't want to. The thing is, they are still feminists because they're afraid, and it's ironic because they're only like able to be who they are by the grace of men, and men haven't done anything to them. They could, but they haven't, right? But they still think that what is protecting them is their feminism, but what it is men that's protecting them, right? And they just haven't understood that. They haven't internalized that reality. So yeah, and the men, but there's a lot of men too. Like I just did a video on um the guys from Trigonometry, right? It's like Konstantin Kissin and his friend. I don't
Yeah.
remember the guy's name. And they were talking to Helen Andrews, who wrote this thing about the great feminization. And of course, they were like, well, let's just be real. Like, historically, women. I was like, shut up, guys. You're wrong. Like, we've always looked out for them. We've had to. Always. It's just that, like, when you say women couldn't work, no, women were always working. Like, if you lived anywhere in, like, the 1800s, you don't think the women worked? Like, what? It's just retarded. Like it's just retarded. But this is like the lie. We live under it because of, well, I think modernization and urbanization and all the technological advances, we've made things easier for everybody, and yet women still have it hard. Like shut up. Like that's like, when they say, oh, women they couldn't get credit cards. Well, men went and died in wars. Like what's worse, guys? Like seriously?
What a horrible
Anyway.
thing to, like, not be indebted. Terrible. What a
Yeah.
horrific punishment that must be.
I know. I'm just saying it's like I know we're getting on a very big digression, but I forgot what we were talking about before I got into this whole
We were
tirade
talking
about
about,
this.
we were talking last thing we talked about was, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn
Yes,
going to the
yes,
UN.
yes. They went to the UN together despite being oppressed, and they got to speak in front of a massive audience of like world leaders and cultists because the UN is a cult. But anyway, and granted, it didn't really do anything because a lot of what the UN does is like fake and gay. It's like virtue signaling, but they got the platform. And what that does is that other people see that and they're like, "Oh, those poor women, they're getting attacked by misogynists online." And this is when I think we started to see the divide in Gamergate 1. And I wouldn't say it killed Gamergate. Like a lot of what they wanted in terms of the people who were concerned about ethics did happen, but the underlying problem, which is leftism, that was not solved. And the reason was because a lot of those guys that were pro Gamergate were leftists. And leftists in a sense that they thought they were normal and that there's like this idea that if you let's say if you challenge leftism or even liberalism too much, you stand to lose that because there's this like irrational fear of the right. It's like irrational, right? And I see it everywhere. I still see it. And I was on the left at the time. I remember I used to say it all the time because like people would accuse me of being a right wing conservative. I was like, I'm not right wing, but that's because I didn't know what it was, you know. And so like what I realized was that the real problem of not just Gamergate, but everything that's happening is a problem of leftism. It's sort of like this, you know, Frankfurt School, like cultural Marxist stuff that's been going on way before I was even born. Probably goes back to the 1960s, although you can trace it back farther. You know, if you want to get into the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all of that. But at
Hmm.
least where it started to really take a foothold in the United States, because I think that like you know Europe was cooked already, but like where it took a foothold in the United States was probably like during this whole like peace and love bullshit and like the Cold War and all that. And uh it was something that people didn't want to face because they were like, well, look, man, I just want to play my video games. And it's like, yeah, but your video games are going to get fucked if you're not paying attention because they're coming for this stuff because everything that has cultural cachet becomes a target. Everything that is like when it wasn't cool to play video games, these people didn't care. That's why games were fun. But once games became like real serious business and realized that it was making more money than movies or TV, which were the normal ways to like, you know, propagandize people in the past, then they were going to come for the video games. And they did. And even
Yeah, because
though neither.
until like the original PlayStation or maybe the PlayStation 2, gaming was just seen as a fad for at
Mhm.
least the first decade,
Yeah, or
if
it
not
was like
two.
a niche hobby for like, you know, certain people that took interest in it. But now everyone games. Like, I think most people game. Like, if you find someone who doesn't play something, even if it's on their phone, that's probably the outlier now, you know?
Of course, like
And
yeah, I mean, you got soccer moms that even like play Candy Crush.
yeah, yeah, they play on their phone or whatever. I mean, like my wife, you know, she's a gamer like part-time, like not like me, but like, you know, she does some of it and she likes the cozy stuff like Stardew Valley and you know, Minecraft even. She plays a lot of Minecraft. So, but it so like anyway, I'm getting off track, but like this is what I knew was gonna happen, and I was trying to warn people about it, and it did cause a divide in Gamergate because essentially what happened was you got people who either you know abandoned it because they didn't want to go like to work to look too closely at the problem because it might push them away from their sort of like liberal, you know, post-war consensus viewpoint, and that's scary because it's like, you know, I don't want to like get too far away from that. I just want to do my thing over here, and hopefully I'll be left alone. And then you had the people that were like, oh, let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes then. And I was one of those people. I wanted to see this to the end because I just knew that it was only going to get worse. And sure enough, even though Anita Sarkeesian became irrelevant in terms of her YouTube channel, it didn't matter because she ended up getting work in the gaming industry itself. She she got to know Neil Druckmann. She ended up working on Dishonored, I think, to some degree. So she's like getting work in the industry now. And I don't know everything she's involved with because I'm sure that they're, you know, doing their best to sort of hide it or whatever. But she's not having an influence. And more than that, more importantly, it's not just that, you know, it's not just Anita Sarkeesian changing gaming. It's everyone who agrees with her. And there's a lot of those people in the industry. And they're all trying to make
I
positive
mean,
change.
overwhelmingly, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's overwhelmingly that. And you know, you mentioned how you had a class where you had to like do a report on Depression Quest. When I was going to school, I went to college in the early 2000s, like around it was over when Obama was president, so it wasn't that it was like around there. I went back to school. I wanted to finish my degree. And I was taking a class. I wasn't taking a video game class on purpose, but there was a class that had some game design in it. It was it was called the Academy of Art. It was like a bunch of these like for-profit college locations. They were all over the place. I really wish I hadn't gone because I didn't get much out of it. But I went to this class, and Anita Sarkeesian came up in a class discussion, and I was like, and of course it was framed. It was one of the students, a couple of students that brought it up, and it was framed as, she's being harassed by misogynists online. And at the time, when I was going to school that time, I was fighting with all my professors because they were all trying to spit feminist garbage and leftist garbage at me, and I was shooting it all down. Like, honestly, I even had women come up to me after, girls in my classroom, say, I'm glad you said that. And I'd be like, well, why didn't you say it? Because I'm like, I'm like alone over here, But yeah, this guy, he was talking about this stuff with Anita, and I said, no, she's not being harassed. She doesn't even play video games. Like, she's fake, and she's just using this to make money. And he was like, you see, this is a perfect example of exactly the problem, right? And I was like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. Like, because what we're doing is we're not just like, it's a one thing to convert a normal guy towards like being like, a pro-feminist white knight guy. It's one thing to do that with a normal guy who like watches sports or whatever, he's like a jock, or because they're probably like highly likely to just reject that, or at least not be that affected by it. Like, okay, whatever, make me a sandwich. But to like nerdy guys that are really introverted and passive, it's super effective on them because they're looking to
Well, they
find a
see it as like
way,
a pathway to get pussy.
or just to get approval. Like, they just want to be liked, and they think that to do that is to appeal to women. And it is a way, because men generally want to support women, right? But there's just different ways to go about it, and it requires some discernment because not all women are deserving. Like, some women are pieces of shit. But these guys are not able to discern who is worthy of their protection or, support. So they'll just go with anybody who gives them the time of day. I'm not even sure it's always about getting pussy per se, but they do really want approval from women. And
I mean, we're
they
both
will.
guys, like, like we both know, like we both know how like dudes think, right? Like,
I know, like,
damn well, like these like cucks and simps and whatever, like, they would like it'd be the best, greatest day of like their life if like these like girls, like these feminists or whatever that they're like pretending to be feminists for would like be into them and like give it up for them. Like that's really like the goal with these weasels for sure.
I mean, a lot of the time, but I don't think it is all the time. Like, I know guys who are married to women that they absolutely love, and they'll still cape for women, not even to get laid. I think that female approval is extremely powerful. It's very intoxicating for men. It's like, Princess Leia puts a medal on Chewbacca. No, he didn't get one. She puts a medal on Luke Skywalker, and he's just like that. That's like it. Like, she doesn't have to make out with him. She doesn't have to suck his dick. She just gives him approval, and that's like
Well,
enough. And a
they're
lot of these
siblings, so
guys,
I'm glad none of that happened. Yeah.
the what? Oh yeah, I know. No,
Luke
I'm
and
glad that
Leia,
didn't
they're
happen.
siblings.
But
I'm glad that didn't happen.
no, I know. I'm glad too. And also, she gave Han one. But like, but my point is that I do think that to simply boil it down to sexual interest is doing a bit of a disservice to how powerful the desire to be approved by a woman is. And a lot of men, I mean, most men struggle with this. Um, Even if they're not interested in them sexually, but they want to appear to be the hero. That's the drive, right? They want to look like the good guy. And so they support the downtrodden, they protect the weak. And I think that that is
So do you think like the other half of this coin is maybe just like a general like left wing like fake altruism? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
well, so with the men who cape for women, I don't really think it's fake. I do, but I do think that women know that they can do this to men, and so they do exploit this. Um, and that's something that we don't want to look at, is that women are very good at manipulating men. And we've known this for most of history, but for some reason now we pretend like that's not a thing. And but I don't think it's cynical. I think that women do what they have to do to survive because they are weaker, and there is some cause for them to feel like there's a need to be afraid. I do think it's irrational and taken to the extreme, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that feminists have terrified women into basically seeing men as their enemy, as like some like or their competition at least. But I do think that men still are trying to find ways to help them. And the reason why is because men, like I said, they want to be seen as they want to be seen as heroes. They want to be good guys. They want to be in the good category. And that's what liberalism does. It's actually a really helpful shorthand for people to just be like, I'm a good person because I'm a liberal. And that's why people have a hard time letting go of liberalism, because they're under the impression, and I think it's false, that liberalism equals good things. And it just doesn't, because it necessarily it means that conservatism is bad. And that's just not true.
Hmm.
So, um, anyway,
So
It's
I have a question. I think it's kind of obvious, but who won and who lost in Gamergate 1?
Um, I think that it was like some people would say that Gamergate 1 never ended, and I think that that makes sense. A lot of people call this Gamergate 2, but this is more like a resurgence of what was already bubbling under the surface. I would say that it was a bit of a mixed bag. So like some compromises were made on the um let's say on the level of, if your goal was to get ethics in journalism, some corrections were made. There was a bit more transparency on these websites that was put forward. I would also say that another win is that some of these websites are either getting no traffic or they're just gone. So like people just don't go there anymore. The rise of online review channels has kind of like made that point moot anyway. So like, I don't do this personally, but a lot of people just go and watch, the Act Man or somebody on YouTube, Angry Joe or whatever, to get their game reviews anyways.
we don't watch Act Man around here. We are
No,
staunch
no,
Andy Pants supporters.
no, I don't watch Ackman either. But I'm making a
Admirable.
point about like where people are going for their info. But you see, that's another example. You said earlier that there are streamers or like game, YouTubers that are now being courted by the developers to come to like events and stuff, right? So they get to go
Yeah.
instead of like, the guys at GameSpot, it's like these like YouTubers that are going. So it's
It's like
just,
the same shit as before. It's like
yeah, it's
YouTubers
just
basically are playing like access journalism.
right. So it's just it's the same shit that's happening. It's just like the targets are different, and that kind of makes sense that that's where that would go. But again, I think that that is where Gamergate, if we want to call it like a thing that happened in a chapter, that's where they failed because they didn't address the core problem, and the core problem isn't even like the sort of nepotism, although that is a problem. But I think that that's a problem everywhere. The core problem is this liberal ideology that is used because if you like promote like the good things, like with your game narratives, then you're going to get more help from people who agree with you, and that's going to be good for your brand, right? Or at least like it should on paper. So what I think the real issue is we have to challenge the ideological narrative itself, and that's like the harder work. But on that front, I think that we have seen more ground being gained because, well, first of all, and I won't you can't change my mind on this. Gamergate is why Trump won the election in 2016, like 100% why he won, because when Gamergate happened, um, gamers became politically active and they weren't before. Like you had a bunch of people, guys mostly, that would otherwise have not given a shit about what was happening in the world. Like Obama was in office, whatever. He's drone striking the Middle East all day. Nobody notices because they're playing their video games. And then these people who, voted that guy in and were talking about systemic racism and white supremacy and capitalism's problems and all of that, all of a sudden they're coming after the gamers themselves and they're talking about how bad gamers are, how problematic video games are, how problematic comic books are, how problematic your movies are, your TV shows are, whatever. And the gamers are like, "Why are you attacking us? We're just over here doing our own thing." And then they started to look into it. And I think that you took a group of people who are really good at winning and you made them politically activated. And so they became politically active everywhere. I think, and I don't go to 4chan, but I believe a lot of it happened on 4chan. That's where you got Vivian James, which is sort of like a mascot I use on my channel because she is essentially the face of Gamergate, like the mascot of Gamergate. And it all came out of 4chan. And so you had all of these people asking questions about where does feminism come from? Where does leftism come from? And they learned about the Frankfurt School. They learned about cultural Marxism. They learned about the history of all this stuff. Learned about where it came from, which again goes back to the Rothschilds and like I mean, if you really like, it goes to the CIA and all this other shit. And they were like, "Oh, I see. So you guys are communists and you're trying to take everything away from us and you're trying to like fuck with our country. And so now we're going to push back." And this is actually, the guys over at Cult Games, the guys who developed the Great Rebellion,
Yeah. Cool
those
guys.
guys, yeah, they're very based and they're gamers and they saw this problem back then and they became activated by that and that's I'm telling you that's where it all came from. Most of the big right-wing political commentators now were gamers, or they're being dragged into the political conversation. I saw Stuttering Craig, who used to do Screw Attack, I guess, and now he's
Yeah.
doing his own thing called Side Scrollers. And at first, when Gamergate 2 first happened with Cabrutus Rambo and everything, he didn't want anything to do with it. He was like, "Oh, I don't want to hear about it. I'm sick of hearing this," because Gamergate was coming up, and he didn't even know what it was. Like he just didn't like hearing it. Like it was bothering him for some reason. But now he's like completely all in. Like he gets it. And he even did a whole video about the Somalian fraud that's happening in Minnesota. What does that have to do with video games? That's what I'm saying. Like this is um a new kind of meta game that's happening that gamers are playing. So I think that Gamergate is responsible for getting Trump into office and for all of the other sort of like, online like scuffles or skirmishes that have been going on around every little gaming controversy, even before Cabrutus happened. I mean, Cabrutus himself was before his whole thing on Steam, his list came out. He was reacting, he
And
was
just for
acting.
background, like you're like referring to his list on Sweet Baby Inc., which was
Yeah,
like
the Sweet Baby Ink Detected list. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
what would you call them? They're like a advisory firm or something like
They're
that,
they call themselves narrative consulting firm. That's what
right?
they call themselves.
And basically, what they did was, they got paid to make games woke and gay and cringe and lame.
Yeah. They got paid. Well, they would step no, it wasn't just like they were reached out to, although that probably happened that way a lot of the time. What they would do is they would contact game developers and they would say, "We're going to change your games. Like we're going to help your games reach more people." Now, probably part of the reason why a lot of developers think that's necessary is because there's a lot of it's an
Well,
oversaturated market.
to be
It's
fair,
getting
I don't
that
think
way.
it's the devs. I think they're appealing to like the board members of these like publishers, which
Yeah,
is totally
they always
different.
go, no, no, it's true. They always go top down. They always operate top down. So if they can get to like whoever the highest
Because
ranked
the
person
devs, like
is,
the creatives, would be like probably most of them would be kind of annoyed by that, even if they kind of like vaguely agreed with the politics. It's like, who the fuck are you to come in here and like change my game? But
yeah,
when it's the publisher funding your development, like there's kind of nothing you can do about it.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, they would definitely go skip the middleman, go up to the top, and then I mean, like Kim Belair famously said that you call them up and you sit down, have lunch with them, and terrify them into what might happen to them if they don't essentially allow them to change your game. And Cabrutus saw that that was going to be a problem, and he made a list. But what I'm getting at is before we get into Cabrutus, what got him to make that list had to be something that was a byproduct of the ideological criticism of leftism before he even knew what he was looking at. So like he must have known that there was like this problem with wokeness in our culture before he like ID'd it and did the whole list of Sweet Baby Inc., which goes back to like the original Gamergate and that Splinter faction, myself part of that was warning and raising the alarm on this stuff way before it got to the point where it is now. So, do you see what I'm saying? So like Cabrutus wouldn't have done this if we weren't talking about it back then because he
Yeah,
might
of
not have
course.
noticed. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think that's what the like how this is significant. So,
I agree.
uh
I think you're right. I think this stuff, really did activate a lot of people into politics. A lot of younger guys or just vaguely like gamer dudes, whatever. And
Yep.
it's really changed the political landscape and had a real world effect. As you said, let's pivot a little bit off Gamergate though. Um, let's do something that's kind of like tangentially related. Um, what do you think about the whole, not like necessarily the one that just passed, but just in general, the dog and pony show known as the Game Awards? What is your take on the existence of this thing even?
I've never even watched those, to be honest. Like I remember, no, I don't even watch them, but basically the Game Awards are the Oscars for gamers now, right? Or for gaming now.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah, and
Oscars is
they're like,
basically just a giant marketing
yep.
circus where they're just using it to sell you on products. So I don't watch the Game Awards. I usually just watch the game trailers after the awards are over and just the ones I'm interested in.
And you
So,
mentioned him earlier as the Dorito Pope,
yeah,
but
Jeff Keighley.
it's run by Jeff Keighley, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like you said, like it's just like corporate marketing, like whatever, like nonsense. And I don't know why people even take this shit seriously. Like I don't know why anyone would even care like what they think about anything.
Yeah, well, it's the same reason why when I was little, well, not little, when I was younger, I used to watch the Oscars every year. And because I still love movies, but I would go watch the Oscars every year because I wanted to see who won and like talk about, like what people look like and what they're talking about. And I look back on that and I cringe now because it's like dude, it's all fake. Like these people all know each other. They're all going to the same orgies and worshiping at the same Moloch temples and, drinking the same adrenochrome or whatever. And on top of that, like none of the awards matter. Like the movies I like, I don't care if they win or not. So I didn't understand why I even cared about that stuff. But there was at the time, I would take a joy out of seeing my favorite movies win awards.
What
Like
do you think that is?
when
Like, do you think you just
it's like
like
validation, like I get
I
to
was gonna
tell
say like
people
you get
like
some
my
like
movie won.
right, like some establishment validation for like your
That's
your opinion on whatever. Like, yeah, yeah, see, even the experts say that like this movie's
yes,
awesome or
yes, it's a
something like that.
desire to be validated. Well, only if other people are shitting on it. Like when Return of the King won, I was like, well, of course. But like yeah, I think and the gaming awards the same thing. Like if I used to kind of care about like if a game got a good review that I liked, because I could tell my friends, well, this game got good reviews. But now I don't really have to do that. I can just be like, look, I think it's a good game, and here's why. And that's it. Like I don't care if it gets recognized or not. I think at the last Game Awards, what was it that swept? Was it Expedition 33?
Yeah, I think
I
there was some controversy about like they took their Game of the Year award back or whatever because they used AI for like concepting or some shit.
oh
I don't know, I'm not really brushed up on it,
They had
but
yeah.
they had AI for a texture that they forgot to pull out. And that's what it was all about. Literally one texture for something. As far as I understand,
which is
it's from
if
one
that's the
texture
case,
that
like
they didn't. Yeah.
that's an insane overreaction if that's the case.
Uh
Oh,
huh.
that's ridiculous. I mean, look, AI is here, and I'm sorry, but we're just gonna see stuff with AI in it. It's just like that to me doesn't. I don't really care about that. As I just care about what the final product is. Like, is it gonna be good? Because right now I can spot AI shit like immediately if I see it. Um, but that's because most of it's just slop. It's just lazy. People just throw
It's
it
gonna get
together
to a
really
point
quick.
though on this path if it continues developing the way it is where you're not gonna be able to notice.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it's here and it's going to get to the point where we're not going to be able to tell. We can't trust anything we see. But it could make for, more interesting entertainment, I guess, especially if more independent people are doing it. So like this is the thing that Hollywood is panicking about is that like they're not going to be able to control they're not going to be able to gatekeep that through budgets because AI is going to eliminate all of that, right? So but like I think the with the Game Awards, going back to that, yeah, I don't watch them, and again, I think that they're just a way of trying to control the temperature and the attention that gamers give to um, whatever's happening in the industry to be like what they want them to look at. So like they tell you what games you should be excited about. They tell you which stars, voice actors or writers or directors are the most important, and I just don't care about those things. So like for me, and I think that a lot of people are like that too. I mean, if you're like a Zoomer and you play a lot of like Fortnite or Valorant or whatever, do you care what the Game Award says? Because they're gonna talk about, and this is the thing they do too that's like the Oscars. Are you familiar with the term Oscar bait?
Yeah.
Okay. So like
You
for
think that
people who
they're doing
don't
that with
know,
games too, like Game Awards bait?
absolutely, 100%. Oscar bait is movies that are made just to win an Oscar. And the purpose of them is to get like all kinds of clout for winning an Oscar so that you
Just
can
like
drive
amass like
people.
prestige and, you know,
Yeah,
maybe boost your stock price a bit.
but also to get people to watch a story that has a specific progressive narrative in it. So like, Brendan Fraser was in The Mummy and I like him. He's a fun actor. I think he's a good guy. But he never won anything. And then he was in that movie The Whale where he plays like a obese gay guy who dies of AIDS or something. I don't remember this. I never seen it, but it won Oscars. So everybody had to go see it. And so what do they take away? Well, whatever the story was trying to tell them, and it's always something about if it's got black characters, it's about the struggle. If it's got gay characters, it's about like being gay and how hard that is. It's about women, which is almost all of them. It's about how hard it is to be a woman and how they have to fight hard against that. There's nothing like nothing wins an award that's about like the Crusades, like on the side of the Templars or something. There's nothing that's ever going to win an award about King Arthur being badass. The only thing that came close was Lord of the Rings, and that was only because they couldn't ignore it because they didn't give any awards to the first two. I think they got them for like special effects and stuff. So I realized then the Oscars is just a way of pushing again more of this propaganda onto people through this idea that this content is like elite. Like it's like you want to feel like you're a better person than all your friends, watch this movie and then talk to your friends about it. And that just spreads it out there and people fall for it. They fall for it like hook, line, and sinker all the time. So the Game Awards are trying to do the same thing because I've been saying this for a while now. Video games, not all of them, but the AAA ones in particular, are trying to be the new Hollywood. So they're going to do everything that Hollywood does. They go to the parties. I bet that Jeff Keighley goes to these orgies too, but they go to the parties. They win awards and they pat each other on the back for having the right politics and putting those in their games. And that's why they do it. Like Neil Druckmann is being, elevated as some kind of genius, like Kojima. And look, Kojima's fine, but I know that he's like kind of like up his own ass, in terms of his politics. That's
It
what
seems very
was.
like pretentious.
It's super pretentious, yeah, but that's by design. Like this is what I'm saying. Like it's all a construct, and that's what the Game Awards is. It's basically like just a way to, I think, tell people like you have to play this sad dad game, like these new God of Wars or whatever it is, Last of Us Part 2. Like that's all on purpose. That's why those games get clout and that's why they get reach. And it all started back when, well, like I said, when people like Anita Sarkeesian got into the industry as sort of like advisors on narratives and all that. That's where it comes from.
Well, I couldn't speak specifically to Jeff Keighley and the orgies and whatnot, but otherwise, I pretty much completely agree. One good thing I'll say about the Game Awards is this year they did have one announcement I was particularly excited about, and it'll loop into what we were talking about earlier. Nameless, do you mind pulling it up?
Let's take a look. Oh yeah, no, I
So,
saw that. I remember that. Yes.
yeah, so this I'm actually pretty excited for. This is the only good part of the Game Awards is to see announcements.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I usually watch these things afterwards. And look, they know that people like what gamers want to some degree. I think Capcom, they still try to deliver the stuff that we're all used to. I think Japan in general has been moving away from the woke stuff, to be honest.
I hope so.
I think so. I mean, there's probably some examples you could find of them going towards it because they got their own, struggles with this stuff. But
Yeah, there's
yes,
a big nationalism movement in Japan right now.
yeah. Yeah, they're definitely worried about immigration, and they just hired or elected rather a new like, super based like nationalist woman prime
Yeah,
minister. I think the
surprisingly
first.
a woman.
Yeah, surprisingly. But you know what? Sometimes that's what it takes. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you got to get a base woman in there so that people are like, "Wow, I didn't know women could be like that." Um, so yes, I am
Set the
excited for
standard.
this.
Yeah,
2027 is far away though. Holy
it
shit.
is pretty far away, right? Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
But we're also getting the Star Force collection this year, and I'm still holding out a shred of hope for a Legends collection and a Legends 3.
What?
Although I don't know, a collection of Mega Man Legends 1, the spin-off, and 2, and then
Oh,
maybe the
oh.
third game.
Mhm.
I don't know that it'll happen, but it would be the last series without a collection. So
Is Star Force a shooter?
Star Force is kind of like Battle Network.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like a Mega Man thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's Mega Man Star Force. It's I think it's like a spiritual sequel, or maybe even it's kind of like Star Force is to Battle Network, I guess. What X is to the classic series is probably how I would put it.
Right, I gotcha. Okay. I
So
didn't
we're
know
getting we're
what
getting
it
a
was.
collection of those this year, which is good. Because I think otherwise they were just on like DS, and
Mhm.
so it'll be nice to have those too. And I'm excited for Dual Override. I have no idea why they're not just calling it 12, but still happy to have it. Happy to
It'll
see it.
probably, if it's called dual override, I was thinking it's probably gonna have the mechanics that 11 had, where you had like the
Yeah, the
yeah,
dual gear mechanic, I think it was
yeah, the
called
dual
double
gear
gear or
thing.
something like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean that was like the one thing from the Game Awards I was actually happy about. Otherwise, like I didn't care at all. And I never watched it live. I just saw the announcement like on Twitter, like
Mhm.
afterward.
I have
But
a few games I'm excited for that I don't know if they showed them off the Game Awards. I assume they did. But I do have a couple of games I'm looking forward to next year. I'm thinking about making a video about it, like which ones I'm
they
interested
have that
in.
new Souls game coming out for Switch 2. It looks kind of
Yeah.
Bloodborne-y.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Only because I don't want to. I can't buy a console for one game, and that's the only reason why I would get it. But we'll see. Maybe
Yeah.
it. I mean, I guess I'm. I don't know why FromSoft is even bothering with exclusives. Like, it doesn't work because people want. Like, I think Bloodborne should be accessible to everybody. I think Demon Souls should be accessible to everybody. Um, but it is what it is. So
Yeah, that's pretty much the only game on Switch 2 I care about at the moment. My
yeah.
general rule is I'll upgrade to like a new console if I can find at least 3 games I can only get there that I really want. So far
Hmm.
that's it's just one, you know. So I guess the next thing, Nameless, you can pull this one up, is there was this tweet that went like, you know, semi-viral, I guess. It had like last time I checked roughly like 10 million views on Twitter. Uh and it says, why don't we have a proper Superman game yet? What do you think
Hmm.
about that? Obviously, we've had like the Superman Returns game, the infamous Superman
N64 one.
64. Yeah. Why do you think we haven't had like a proper Superman game despite having like a million Spider-Man and Batman games and whatnot?
Well, okay. So the purpose of a superhero game is usually to so you can feel like the character, right? So people love the Batman games because you feel like Batman. You're like stealthy and you have these gadgets and your his amazing fighting ability. People like the Spider-Man games because you get to web swing all over the city, and that's a lot of fun. And you want to embody the character with that. I don't think it can't be done, but the problem with the Superman game is that Superman is extremely powerful. So it's going to be like a power fantasy for the most part. Um, and I think that game developers are like the people who write the stories. And I do think that it is I want to say like a cope to say it can't be done because he's too powerful. I don't think that that's true. I think that you can make it work, but I think that you have to
I
like
think you
alter
just
the
have to be more
scale.
creative.
You have to be creative, yes. So what I think people miss is that they think that to play Superman or any like superhero game is really just about like, the combat, like how do you beat bad guys and stuff. I think that you can do this in other ways. I think that you can have a focus on rescuing people, on stopping disasters, on doing
Yep.
things that he can certainly do, but doesn't require him to use his powers to defeat enemies. of course there will be enemies, but I think that that's sort of like another aspect. So,
You
and
can basically
also
make,
maybe,
and I totally agree with you, by the way. You can really
yeah,
just have like the main gameplay focus on like precision and like being careful.
yes, yes, exactly. I was gonna say
And I
like
think it
you,
could totally work.
yeah, like you don't want to knock down buildings on accident. Like maybe you have to like be like you said, be creative, be careful. Like if there's a big bad that comes into the city, maybe you have to lure him out. Maybe you throw him out and fight him like in a desert
And you
someplace or
could also
something.
make, like, parts that are, like, actually dangerous too, like, you could have,
Yeah,
like, Luther with kryptonite shit, or you can go to, like, Apocalypse and fight Doomsday or,
yeah, different planets. I would do stuff
right,
in space. I would do stuff on other planets. I would do the scale up really big. And that's the other thing
like,
too is
maybe
that
you have to, like, maybe, like, you're low after a fight, you have to, like, floor it all the way to the sun, and it would be kinda cool to
yeah.
see that. I mean, Superman I don't know, like, canonically, like, how fast he actually flies, but, I'm certain it's faster than, like, the speed of light
Well,
or
it's
whatever.
constantly changing. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, so
but
I guess it depends on, like, what, like, storyline or what, like, comics they end up going with.
yeah, what I would do is I wouldn't lean too heavy on the kryptonite thing because I think that's lazy. I would there because the thing is, it was Superman. I would look. You know what I would look to for inspiration? I would look to the Bruce Timm Paul Dini. I think his name was Paul Dini. Run on Superman. I think it's called the New Adventures or something, and it was like a Superman cartoon show that came out after the Batman cartoon that everyone knows. Done by Bruce Timm, and the Superman show was really creatively done because they knew what they were working with,
Are
but
you talking
they
about
did it.
The Adventures of Superman or
Yeah,
whatever,
the
the
Adventures
animated
is
show
it the
from, like, the
Adventures of the
90s?
animated one? Yes, the animated one.
Yeah,
The animated
that
one
one became,
because
like, before, like, Justice League and Justice League
yes,
Unlimited, like,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
that's some good shit.
yeah. There's a lot of good stuff to draw from, and you could use Superman's weaknesses are not just kryptonite, right? There's like they because Paul Dini was very good at doing this. First of all, you can use psychic abilities work on him, magic works on him, and the red sun. You put him in a red sun, he becomes normal, or at least weakened. I think that Captain Atom kicked his ass in one of the Justice League Unlimited episodes or Justice League episodes because he used like the harness the red sun in his fists. So like there's ways to get around that kryptonite thing. And of course you could use that too. But then there's just dudes that are just stronger than him. Like like Darkseid could kick his ass too. So like depends on
Pretty
that.
obvious why they don't do a Superman game, especially like looking at this game and how it's like a free roam sort of thing. And you guys were talking about like a man, like imagine this, a white man learning how to control his power, right, from like wrecking buildings and like having to save people. They don't want the narrative of like a white
No,
man
that's true.
controlling his power to do good, right, versus like just running into
Hmm.
buildings and being like stupid or chaotic. They don't want to teach this into the next generation. So
It's
it's very obvious why
it's
they don't want
definitely.
that.
I think that's
Well,
part of
truth,
it.
justice, and the American way is very offensive to the
They can't
Somali
even
debate
they can't
players.
Yeah.
even say that. Yeah, they can't even say that. So I do think that in a lot of ways we're not ready for this, or at least like people who make. I think gamers would love it if they do it well, um, but yeah, we're not exactly ready for the Superman game as developers are not ready to do it. The other thing too, last thing I'll say about the Superman thing is that I think the only other way it will work is if there should be. It would require quite the engine because I'd like to see remember Hulk Ultimate Destruction? That was like a really good example of
That was
something that's like a
a
power fantasy. It was a
PS2 era
PS2
game,
game.
I think? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a Hulk game. It wasn't based on any movies or anything like that. And you're just the Hulk and you can just like destroy entire city blocks. Because you're the Hulk. You just rage out and you can like smash buildings until they fall. Now, of course, Superman wouldn't do that, but the destruction, the level of destruction that's capable or that's possible, I think that would be something people would like to see in a Superman game where
The
you can.
problem is that, like, maybe, like, people would love to just fucking floor it into buildings and, knock skyscrapers down. So maybe
Yeah,
you'd have to have it in, like, some kinda alternate universe or whatever. Maybe,
exactly.
like, Earth
Or
is
maybe
desolate
it's
or
instead of
inhabited by, like, aliens, like Brainiac aliens or who knows.
yeah, 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 robots, the robot city. No, or like
Right.
some abandoned city, like a like a ruined city or whatever. But like that, I think that to see people want to see like the like the destructible environments is ultimately what I'm getting at. I think that that would make it fun. It doesn't have to be habitated buildings, but like destructible environments will be a big part of it. Just so you can see the power. Like if you do like you punch the ground, it creates a crater. People want to see stuff like that. Because
This was
that would
so
be
many
cool.
cool powers that you could really utilize for some really
Yeah,
interesting gameplay.
absolutely. Get to freeze things with your breath and use the heat vision to like weld
And just like
things and
super
break
breath in
things.
general, you X-ray vision,
Yep.
heat vision, all this types of crazy shit.
Yep. The X-ray
Can't
vision would
wait
be
for the
super cool.
power where he shoots little versions of Supermans out of his fingertips. Remember that power? No?
No, no,
That
little
was a
Superman.
legitimate power back in the day in the comic
Oh my
books.
god.
It's just
Yeah,
funny.
I'm sure. Again, they have to nail down. I would go with the John Byrne era Superman. That was like he was a bit nerfed, but it was still like he was still Superman, but he wasn't so crazy that he was like blowing out suns with his breath. Because you don't like you can't work with that. Like if it's that scaled up. But that's how I would approach it.
I
If
mean, I
anything,
think
give
that,
us like a
like,
Homelander
they coulda
simulator.
Winter Simulator, just laser people who piss you off on the
Yeah.
street. Or, I mean,
Yeah.
like, they already did, like, the whole, like, Injustice games, you know?
Yeah, though I don't know, those I don't think they're
I
very
don't like
good.
the games, but I think, like, the premise is interesting. But I've never been, like, a those are made by the people who made Mortal Kombat, I think, and, I've never
Yeah,
liked
it
Mortal
is.
Kombat, like, ever.
Me neither. I don't think they're good games.
I don't either. I think
I
the
don't.
gore is, like, the gimmick. I don't think that they're actually that
It
good.
100% a gimmick. Like once you've seen the fatalities, you're like, okay, that was nice. I'm done.
Yeah, at this point, you can just save yourself $60 or whatever and just watch, like, a 10-minute compilation on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Like, I
Yeah, I'm
think if
not.
you wanna play a fighting game with depth, like, you could do a lot better. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think, like, I've always been, like, a Soul Calibur guy or whatever, but, like, Dead or Alive has been pretty good too, you
Mhm.
know? The older Street Fighters I like. Mortal Kombat, never been a fan. I guess so here we come to the last topic.
Okay.
Nameless, would you pull that last part up, that last tweet from Pirate Nation? So this is about IO Interactive's
Oh
new
god.
James Bond game coming out.
Yep.
So it's Double 007 First Light. The tweet here reads IO Interactive says an old school Bond would be tone deaf today as Double 007 First Light moves the character toward more modern values. To me, it seems like the devs themselves are the ones who are tone deaf here. And I know that you're a big Bond fan since, we did the GoldenEye movie together and, we
Mhm.
had a good conversation about that. So, like, what's your take on the quote unquote modernization of this?
There is no way to modernize Bond. Use scare quotes with that and continue and it be Bond. It's not Bond anymore. And by the way, the suggestion that there's something wrong with Bond is ridiculous on its face anyhow. Like why? Because he was good with the ladies? Like it wasn't it's just ridiculous that they would even make this claim. This is and let me just say, okay, one thing I'll say about this is that when these people say this needs to be updated, or this is a little like old fashioned, or this is, tone deaf, or this is out of touch with whatever, and they're talking about some old, franchise, or at least one that's been iconic and has managed to persist for however long. I mean, James Bond is very old. They're not doing this because they care about this property. They want to destroy it. Like everything is about tearing it down. That's all it is. So like this is not they're not honest on their face, okay? They're actively working to undermine, corrupt and ultimately destroy what it is that was built. And the truth is they're only doing it because of it is something that exists in opposition to their worldview, right? They are nihilists. They are atheists. They don't believe in anything pure or true or beautiful. And I would call the Bond movies, I would call those things that because they were from a place that I think resonated in particular with men, but not only because women like those movies too. My mom, I would watch the Bond movies with her. She was hooked on those. She would watch them whenever they were on. She didn't care if it was Connery or Moore or Dalton. She didn't give a shit. She wanted to watch them. So but it's because it is something that is successful. And if you look at this sort of like, commie literature on this stuff, they ultimately all say that what we have to do is we have to tear everything down that people are attached to demoralize them, and then ultimately they'll like come to us, right? So they have to destroy it, and they don't really have a plan beyond that. It's not like they know what happens next. It's just about tearing it down. So yeah, this is dead before it even started. I saw the trailer for it, and my hackles were up right off the bat, and I was like, this just looks like Hitman, um, which it did, and that's not bad. I guess the Hitman games are all right. I've never played them, although I plan on trying to stream one sometime. But I think that, yeah, this is all the purpose of this is to just destroy it. That's what, like, the last movie with Daniel Craig was what it was like, he
Oh
dies at the end.
man, yeah.
um, so like that, yeah, this is not an accident. This is on purpose, and this is not a well-intentioned error or anything like that. And the thing is that if we let this happen, I mean, I think the answer is just don't buy the game, whatever you do, and tell your friends not to buy the game. Because if you give them enough sales, you're telling them it's okay for them to shit on your properties, that your favorite IPs, and they only
Yeah,
go after the
I wouldn't
stuff
worry
men
about
like.
that. I don't think anyone is hyped for this at all. I
Well, I
think
hope
it's
not. I hope not.
absolutely dead on arrival.
Yeah, I'm no way, no way. I guess the only thing that could be interesting to come out of it is if like somebody pirated it and streamed it for the lulz. But yeah, that's the only way. So
I think the
the
only thing you can like
they
accept
made
really
money,
is
they
like
money penny this nerdy looking black woman now too. Okay. All right, sure.
I think everyone is like black and Indian except for Bond himself and Q.
Yeah.
Like everyone else. I think the only exception I think would be reasonable to make would
The
be,
villain?
for someone like Andy Pants to like buy the game, to like shit on it. Because someone like that like
Yeah.
has like a ton of reach, and he can like kind of help make more like of an impact.
Mhm. Yeah. No, for sure.
Because
I
like
mean,
that one sale might prevent, thousands of others. So I
yeah.
think inherently, like at its core, like it's worth it.
Well, I would hope so. I think that maybe, yeah, I would hope so. We'll see, I guess. But yeah, that's what I think. So ultimately, these people are not well intentioned, but the one of the things they're trying to do is to get you to become as nihilistic as they are, and you can't do that because that's when they win. So
I agree. And Bond is a property that's a little too near and dear to my heart to ever support some fucking slop like this ever.
yes.
Like I think, me and you could have probably done an entire podcast just talking about Bond shit, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
could. I certainly could.
oh, I think we definitely could. Maybe one day we will. Maybe one day we'll
Mm-hmm.
just talk about all the Bond movies and games. Um, but yeah, that's we can't let them win. Can't let them get away with this kind of shit.
No.
And it is absolutely demoralizing that they continue with this march to destroy everything that we care for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that about wraps it up. Brian Martinez, anything else that you want to plug or say before we go?
No, I mean, the channel is Honey Badger Arcade. That's my personal channel. I do game streams. I was doing like themes every month, but these days I think I'm just gonna like play older games that I am told are goated for the first time, so they're like blind playthroughs, and then like discuss, like, while I'm playing them, I'll talk about like all the things that I'm noticing that you don't see in modern games. So currently, I just started playing Fallout New Vegas. Never played it before. The only Fallout game I've ever
Ooh,
played was Fallout 3 on the PS3. I think it was on the PS3. And while I enjoyed it, I didn't really leave with any like seriously high impressions. But everyone tells me, no, no, Fallout New Vegas is the one that you should play. So I started it yesterday. I'm gonna do another stream of that tomorrow. But I also just make videos about things that are happening in our culture, everything I see, interesting conversations going on, because I do think that ultimately, like, everyone is starting to talk in the way that I was hoping they would do it back when Gamergate started happening. So now we're actually getting there, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So that's it. Honey Badger Arcade is my channel, at Badger Arcade on X, and check out the where I normally work, which is Badger Live Streams on YouTube.
And I will make sure that all of Brian's links are down in the description at the very top, so it should be very easy for you guys to find him. Well, thank you, Brian, for being here and helping me kick off the first episode of this podcast. I appreciate it for sure.
Oh, thanks. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.